Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description.
New Seas Ahead by Peacelight24. Nakama means you never have to say goodbye or be alone, in which Monkey D. Lucy, future Pirate King, and Roronoa Zoro, future world's greatest swordsman, are dumb and everyone else is long-suffering. Or, things with them are always do or die, and love is just the same. Nakama ship, pining, Zorox Fem Lucy. Adios.
I don't get it. Lucy whines when Nami finishes the story. Sanji's letter sits wrinkled in her palms, the characters hastily, sloppily written. It's unlike her cook, who prefers everything neat and orderly and whose script is like print. He just left. He didn't blow up their ship or nothing. Nami shakes her head, eyes watering again. She's leaning against the back of the couch, too tense to sit properly. Her right hand runs over the scars beneath her tattoo in the same habitual, comforting way Zoro rests a palm on Watto's hilt, or Brook touches his hair. A reassurance. A stabilizer. A reminder of what they've already survived, and of where they had to go. Wendy and the other minks ushered them here, all graciousness and affection Lucy had welcomed but hadn't understood until Nami and the others sat them down to explain. The room looks like it's been carved out of the tree trunk, with mustard-colored walls and blue-green furniture. Lucy's sitting cross-legged on a wooden table, her back to the door. Zoro is behind her, standing guard, and the rest of her crew is scattered in tight clusters across the room. They're all crowding close together, craving contact. Usopp and Frankie and Brook are all shoulder to shoulder on the couch. Robin leans against the wall on the far side, with Chopper in her arms. Nami's shoulders brush Frankie's knees. Zoro leans into Lucy's back every once in a while. Sanji's absence is conspicuous, she doesn't like it. Sanji-san threw us to safety with the note, I'm afraid. Brook continues. His voice is soft and sad and shamed as he plucks the strings of his guitar half-heartedly. Capone-san's body sealed up not long after that. In Robin's careful hold, Chopper sniffs as big, salty reindeer tears roll down his cheeks. He just left, Chopper warbles. He had a chance to get out, but instead he. No one finishes the sentence. Robin changes the subject instead. You're sure they said Vinsmoke? Robin asks, directing the question to Brook. The skeleton hums quietly in affirmation. I suppose you would recognize the name as well, Robin-san, Brook replies, his voice as quiet and soothing as ever despite the difficult topics. I worked for a time in the court of Sanji's, great-grandfather, probably. I became a pirate soon after. Frankie picks up on Brook's tone, giving a low whistle. That bad? Brook doesn't answer. The Vinsmokes are a well-known family throughout the world, though they've been on a steady decline for the last century or so. At the height of the family's power, they ruled all of North Blue. Now, Vinsmoke Judge reigns over a floating kingdom, acting mostly as a mercenary and weapons developer, Robin reports. There's a look of vague distaste on her face. I considered working with him, before. He is an odious man. I imagine being his son would be difficult. I don't care about any of that, Lucy states bluntly, still glaring at the letter. I want to know why Sanji went off without us. We'll help him beat up Big Mom or his dad or whoever, he knows that. It's so strange, too. Downright odd, even, because Lucy's always been pretty aware don't fuck with me is written into the very fabric of Sanji's soul. It's why she liked him so much, back on the restaurant. He just wanted to feed people and flirt and dream about all blue even when everyone else said it couldn't exist. Plus, this is the same guy who clawed his way onto a speeding ocean train in the middle of a tsunami because he knew one of his nakama was in danger. And also, he once berated Zoro for 2 days straight because of an imagined slight toward Nami. Sanji is nothing if not tenacious, and it's weird that he'd just leave like that. Without saying anything important in the note. Without explaining things to Nami and Brook and Chopper. Let me see the note, Zoro demands gruffly. It's the first time he's spoken since they discovered Sanji is missing, accepting a soft greeting for a weepy Chopper. Lucy hands him the note. She has it memorized by now anyway, it isn't long. My friends, I have some things to take care of, but I'll be back. Maybe I'll even take on Big Mom for you. Please don't worry, Lucy-san. See you in Wano. Sanji. No horrible flirting. No dramatic oaths or declarations or over-the-top threats to the guys to keep her and Nami and Robin safe. No instructions about the kitchen or the food stores, or regretful begging to keep Lucy out of them. Zoro frowns at the paper for far longer than it could have possibly taken to read it. He hands it back to Lucy without saying anything. Does he? It sounds weird to say, but it is Sanji they're talking about. Does he want to marry this girl? Nami shakes her head, long red curls bouncing across her back. He outright said he didn't want to more than once. It wasn't until Nami trails off, her eyebrows furrowing in consternation. What is it? Usopp asks, hesitantly, like he isn't sure he wants to know. Bega's number 2 whispered something in his ear. Nami says slowly, taking special care with the words. Whatever he said, after that, Sanji-kun looked scared. Really scared. Lucy frowns at the note harder, resisting the urge to punch something. She wants her nakama back, damn it. She wants Sanji to make her food and bicker with Zoro and flirt really aggressively with Nami and talk about different foods around the world with Robin, and she wants him back. She should probably punch Big Mom, right? It sounds like she's the one responsible. Lucy has a feeling her nakama won't like that very much, but she's pretty sure that'll make most of their current problems go away. Well, we should go to his wedding anyway, Lucy hums with no small amount of consternation, scratching the back of her head. We can't ask him then. There's a beat where she can almost hear her nakama processing, where Lucy feels determination solidifying, and then a chorus of voices echo around her in discordant shock. We should what? Think about it, Aneki. That is the stupidest. Lucy ignores their vaguely hysteric protests and frowns at the curved walls of the pineapple-shaped mink house. This whole thing reeks of blackmail and manipulation. Bringing up Sanji's family and engaging him to some girl he's never met. All of that seems really gross. Dark and twisted in a way Lucy can't put her finger on. And yet, would Sanji have really? We should go on without him. The room drops to dead silence, the cacophony of voices trying to convince Lucy that confronting Big Mom and fetching Sanji at his own wedding was a bad idea, cutting off in choked shock. Lucy turns slightly, looking up at her swordsman in surprise. Zoro stands behind her, shoulders hunched inward and his arms crossed as he scowls at nothing in particular. The set of his mouth is stubborn, and his eye flashes gunmetal gray. She'd almost call him defensive if she couldn't see the muscle twitching in his jaw and the fine trembling of his fists. He's angry. Lucy's not entirely sure who it's directed toward. Sanji maybe. Big Mom. Possibly. Hell, it could be Lucy, for wanting to go after him. We don't need him anyway. We should just. A blur of sunset red and purple strides across the room, and Nami cracks her palm across Zoro's face. Lucy's nakama gasp as one. The air sparks with tension. Zoro doesn't move, just glares right back at Nami without moving a muscle, his arms still crossed over his chest. Nami's body is an aggressive arch from her toes to the roots of her hair. She's trembling like she wants to hit Zoro and never stop. You're glad, aren't you? Nami seethes, rage-coating her voice like she's been waiting for an opportunity to let it out. You're glad he's gone, because you never liked him. You never wanted him around. You worried about him and Lucy, and you hated him because you felt threatened, were worried he was stronger than you, and… Nami. Lucy's voice is stern and low, uncompromising. Nami's mouth clicks shut, instinctively obeying even as her chest heaves in barely restrained passion. Go help Wanda, Lucy orders, voice stint intractable in a way it rarely is toward her crew. Find out if Peckham's is awake. Nami doesn't move for a moment. She trembles instead, a rare kind of rage surging through her. And Lucy is inexplicably reminded of that day long ago in Arlong Park where Nami screamed that she didn't want help, that she could do it on her own. The Nami standing before her now is much closer to that girl than she's been in a long time. You didn't see him, Nami whispers finally, her eyes fever bright. He was. You didn't see him. But before anyone can respond, Nami turns on her heel and strides stiff-backed and firm to the door. She doesn't quite close it hard enough to slam, and the clip-clop of her sandals disappears within a few strides. Chopper, Lucy calls, and the little reindeer who had been making his tentative way over to Zoro jumps a little. Lucy smiles at him reassuringly, trying to calm the terror in his eyes. Can you help her ask around? There's more than one kind of healing, after all, and Chopper is a really good shoulder to cry on. Thankfully, her doctor seems to get it. After a moment's hesitation and a glance at Zoro, whose face is starting to bloom bright red, but otherwise seems unfazed, the reindeer nods determinedly and wipes his tears. His hooves clop a little louder against the dry wood of the deck than Nami's heels, but they too disappear quickly. Lucy looks at her first mate, eyebrow raised in question. Zoro stares back, vaguely defiant, his mouth twisted in the same angry scowl. Nami is fast, and faster when she's pissed, but Zoro could have caught her wrist if he wanted to. Could have dodged or triggered his armament and maybe shattered all the bones in her hand if he wanted to be a real bastard about it, but instead he let her hit him. Nami'll realize that on her own, eventually, and then she'll regret what she just said, because Nami knows that Zoro and Sanji are friends in their own machismo, dysfunctional way, that they die stupidly brave deaths for one another in a heartbeat, that the animosity is mostly habit by now, rather than the product of any real sort of malice. Nami knows all that. And she knows that accusing Zoro of disloyalty and conspiracy is tantamount to calling the very sea barren, or the heavens empty. And she's going to feel really bad when she remembers. At least Zoro's unlikely to hold Nami's reaction against her. Zoro's very aware that he can be a complete bastard sometimes. And Zoro does not want to talk about it, if the scowl is anything to go by. Maybe Lucy should push him to, but it's likely to be counterproductive with the rest of the crew here. She kind of doubts he'd want to discuss it even if it was just the two of them. The best she can hope for is that he'll stop putting his hackles up long enough for her to check on him later. If she was just his girlfriend, she'd do that now. But she's not. She's his captain, and she needs to know what the hell he meant earlier. He knows her well enough to start explaining unprompted. The cook's coming back. He said so. He gestures to the note as he crosses his arms, looking frustrated. It's not like he doesn't have a plan. Which is exactly what Lucy was thinking about earlier. Sanji is almost as neurotic about having a plan as Nami is about money or Frankie about Sunny's cola supply. He makes 5-step strategies to go grocery shopping half the time. Granted, cooking for the crew and around everyone's dietary needs is complicated, but still. Going into Big Mom's territory without a plan? Without even trying to get away? It's strange. Lucy doesn't like it, because she trusts Sanji, absolutely and completely trusts him. But she knows a thing or two about suddenly being faced with impossible choices, especially when family is involved. She knows that if Sanji was scared about something, then it means he probably wasn't thinking straight. Walking into an emperor's territory alone probably isn't quite as crazy as sneaking into the strongest prison in the world, but the principle is probably the same. Doesn't mean it's a good plan, Usopp grumbles. He's eyeing Zoro with a wary sort of concern, but his thoughts are close to her own thinking and so Lucy frowns a little harder. And, Zoro continues, heedless of the comment, we can't ignore Kaido any longer. Frankie makes a quiet, displeased noise that might be agreement. Robin's eyes sharpen. Zoro-san? Brook asks, a little hesitant. Back on Punk Hazard, Kaido was the endgame. He's why we've been carting Caesar around and why we went to Dressrosa in the first place. Lucy kind of thought they went to Dressrosa because Torao had some kind of suicidal death wish to kill Mingo, but hey, she's been wrong before. We've been pissing him off since we came to the New World. And Lucy picked a fight with Big Mom before that. She was gonna destroy Fishman Island over candy, Lucy objects, a little sullen. It was stupid, she's stupid. Usopp groans. Robin huffs in a way that might have been a laugh, under different circumstances. It breaks up a little of the tension in the room. We can't have two emperors after us, Zoro finishes, now gazing hard at Lucy. And we've done more than just declared war against Kaido. We've landed the first assault and won. Lucy hates it when Zoro does this. Well, kind of. She's usually grateful later. But in the moment she hates it, because Zoro only steps in like this when he feels like she might make a mistake. When being the captain is the hardest. And he's always right. The whole marriage thing is weird, Lucy counters. She can't refute anything he's said. And his family, Zoro's eyebrow arches in surprise, and the rest of her nakama follow suit. Lucy supposes it is pretty weird for her to care about anyone's family circumstances. She doesn't, not even Sanji's, not even when she has a weird feeling about Sanji never mentioning them before. But, do you think he wants to go back to them? She directs the question to Brook, who plucks a morose string on the guitar as he shakes his head. Most emphatically not, Lucy-san. Lucy feels the shadow of something dark and protective twist in her gut, solidifying just a little more. If Sanji doesn't want to leave them, that means he's being manipulated, plan or not. No matter how strong he is or how clever, he's still starting from a disadvantage. And without Lucy and the rest of their nakama around to back him up, he's outgunned and outmanned in enemy territory. If there's one thing she's always promised her nakama, it's that she'll always stand between them and chains, no matter what form their bonds take. They do the same for her. And she can't help but feel like Sanji's walking back into a cage he once escaped so thoroughly he never saw fit to tell them about it. It pisses her off, at Sanji, and at those who would try and jail him both. She wants to ask him what the hell he's thinking, charging off alone. And she has a sinking feeling that something is wrong, that he's not in his right mind, that this is like Sabo coming back from the dead but bad, somehow. She doesn't understand, can't, really, but she wants to. All they can do is go and ask. But Zoro's not wrong, either. Kaido is a problem. And Lucy vehemently dislikes the idea of letting someone get the drop on her crew the same way the Big Mom pirates just did. They could just take care of Sanji and pick him up quickly. And then run to Wano. She wouldn't get to beat up Big Mom that way, but at least she'd be able to ensure her nakama's safety. Or she could, no she's not doing that. She's so close to having them back together again. Lucy looks at the note. The characters of Sanji's name are shaky. Rushed. There's a smudge of cigarette ash in the corner. Zoro's right, Lucy says slowly. Usopp and Brook both make quiet, distressed protests that are probably unconscious. But I still want to talk to Sanji. Zoro scowls at her, clearly irritated. Lucy ignores it, standing to head for the door. She has to talk to Peckham's. And Nami. Especially Nami. Come on. I want cheerfully. She doesn't need Haki to sense the uncertain looks her nakama exchange behind her back. It's okay. She only has half a plan right now. Mostly she just has fire burning in her blood and boiling rage just under her skin because someone took her nakama and made him scared enough to nearly misspell his own name. Lucy's going to make them pay for that. Lucy strides determinedly out the door. It only takes a moment for the rest of them to follow. The forest is dense outside the little cluster of pineapple buildings, and the elephant's spongy skin leaves no tracks. So Lucy starts her search for Nami and Chopper by more or less following instinct in her nose. She's semi-successful, but she only figures out how to navigate the thick copse of trees and brush when Wanda gives her a significant glance and a nod to a narrow path between two houses. Lucy thanks her with a wave and turns, her shoulders back and her hands in her pockets, posture easy. The path winds for only a minute or two between the makeshift buildings before emptying into a small clearing. Nami and Chopper sit at the far end of it. Lucy takes her hands out of her pockets and strides forward, neither quick nor slow. Neither of them seems to notice her. When she gets a little closer it becomes clear that Nami hasn't fully cycled through her anger. She's trembling, forehead on her knees, and Chopper's expression is dismayed and uncertain. Lucy's sandals squish obnoxiously in Zoe's flesh, and Nami's shoulders tense when she recognizes her gait. Nami raises her head, eyes defiant. She's not shaking anymore, her frame rigid like she's gearing up for a fight. Chopper whines softly, distressed. Lucy would say something, normally, or send him off to do something else or just smile so he didn't feel so unnerved. But she can't at the moment, because Nami is too important, too angry, too stubborn to see she's pushing away people who only want to help. Lucy pins her gaze to Nami's, mouth firm and hands at her sides, and doesn't speak a word. It takes a while, but Nami looks away first, and her shoulders hunch close around her ears. I'm not apologizing. Zoro doesn't have to be so mean when Sanji-kun's not even here. Nami's face fractures just a little. Lucy says nothing. Sanji-kun was scared. He was so scared and we couldn't help him. If I'd been like, if we had you or Zoro it would have. I could have. She cuts herself off, biting her lip. Sanji-kun doesn't get scared, Nami admits finally. And he didn't want to leave, it was like. Sabaody, Lucy finishes in her head. It was like Sabaody. Lucy doesn't forget, exactly, that the events at the archipelago are seared in all of their memories in different, equally traumatic ways. She can't forget when her crew has such a strong collective hang-up about separation, about teamwork. But sometimes it slips her mind. Sometimes she has to remember that her crew is just as protective of each other as she is of them. That shared trauma can have unexpected blowback. She doesn't forget that Ace wasn't the first person she failed, back then. She can't. But the reminders hurt sometimes, catch her when she's least expecting it. And then that brute, Nami hisses. Her eyes flash and she leaps to her feet as her earlier rage rises. She's taller than Lucy but her temper makes her movements erratic. Has the gall to say we should just leave him? When he's scared and alone and tears wobble down Nami's cheeks and accusation rises in her eyes. In the finger she points at Lucy's chest and then thrusts toward the trees. And don't defend him just because he's here, because you guys are. Nami catches herself. But half the insinuation is out already and it makes Lucy's mouth tighten, displeased. Nami deflates immediately, and she hides her teary, red-splotched face in her arm. I'm sorry. I know you don't, she gulps harshly, like she can't get enough air. And I know Zoro isn't. That it's Sanji-kun and they're stupid, and… Lucy glances at Chopper, gaze softening when she sees him tearing up too. She cocks her chin to Nami, and the little reindeer takes the hint. Nami catches him, startled, when he throws himself around her waist. It takes a moment for her to regain her bearings, but then she curls around Chopper's fluffy little reindeer body, and cries in earnest. She sinks slowly to her knees, half turned away from Lucy like she's embarrassed. She should be. Not because she's crying. Not because she's scared for Sanji or angry at her perceived inability to protect him. She should be embarrassed for believing her nakama wouldn't care the same way she does. She should be embarrassed, just a little, for lashing out like she did. For not trusting Zoro to have his reasons, even if his presentation could be a little more polished. Even if Lucy's still not entirely clear on why he's so willing to let Sanji fend for himself. It's still Zoro, either way. He's still their nakama. The only thing Nami has to be ashamed of is forgetting that. She must have been scared too, her and Brook and Chopper, seeing Sanji taken like that. Lucy eases her gaze, just a little, even as she feels determination burn hotter in her gut. The straw hat slides home over Nami's hair easily, the brim plenty wide to accommodate the pretty beads. Lucy leaves her hand on the crown of Nami's head, and lets her palm be heavy, firm. Her navigator looks up at her, shock in her face. Lucy, if you think you're weak, get stronger, Lucy demands. Nami's eyes are red and her chin wobbles. Lucy lets a small smile loose in response. And trust your nakama to do the rest. Nami's breath hitches, and her arms curl around Chopper just a bit tighter, like she's afraid to let go. The reindeer doesn't seem to mind, not even when she presses her face to his hat and wails. Lucy backs off. Nami's never been weak. No one on her crew is weak. It wasn't Nami's fault that Lucy and Zoro weren't around to help Sanji. That's on Lucy, and her decisions, and it sounds like Sanji went peacefully besides. Whether he was willing, though, is another matter entirely, and the hot pit in her gut curls tighter and more brilliant at the thought. But if Nami wants to increase her firepower, if she wants to be better able to protect herself and her nakama, Lucy's not going to stop her. Just so long as she doesn't stop trusting them, relying on the crew in turn. She'll get her hat back when apologies have been made, when the plan is settled a little more firmly and doesn't taste like ash on Lucy's tongue. Until then, well, that hat has always been pretty good at hiding tears. She's maybe not terribly subtle when she pulls Zoro away from the group just before they get on the alligator rhino things, but no one bats an eyelash at them. At the front of their little cohort, Nami rides with Wanda, Lucy's hat still on her head, and the others claim seats without much thought or care. There's an undercurrent of uncertainty between them though, weight missing from the scale. Lucy notices it, and knows she must alleviate it soon, but she wants to extend the relative calm just a little longer, until she knows as much as she can know about Big Mom and the marriage she's forced upon her cook. In the meantime, her swordsman has a bruise on his cheekbone and something heavy weighing on his brow. She tugs him one step further into the trees, swinging their hands between them. He glares down at her, his whole body tense and radiating irritation. Lucy just grins at him, her smile toothy. Zoro relaxes, if only a little. The scowl stays in place, and his eye still flashes in alert wariness at their surroundings, but his shoulders drop, his hand squeezes hers. Lucy's just the teensiest bit amused at how easy that was. It's not like she's any better, really, but Zoro being naturally cranky makes it a little more obvious with him. She lifts her free hand to his cheek, her thumb grazing the swelling bruise. It's not anywhere near the worst blow he's ever taken, and certainly not one Lucy is worried about beyond its implicates friendship, but she inspects it all the same. He'll probably put himself in a light meditation on the way to see Cat Viper. It'll be healed by the time they get there. Zoro would consider anything less petty, especially given how guilty Nami's going to feel once she calms down. Lucy clicks her tongue softly when she's finished, her smile fading into a faint frown at the heat under her fingertips. She got you good, huh? His scowl deepens. Nope, Lucy rolls her eyes. Zoro's gaze narrows just a bit, irritated. He doesn't look anywhere near guilty enough about gunning for low-hanging fruit. You, Lucy says after a moment, lips twitching against a smile, are such a drama queen. Zoro looks downright offended, and Lucy laughs. The offense shifts to a glower. Lucy just grins at him, undaunted, and sways into his space just a little, enough to press her lips to his blooming bruise, right where his scar bisects it. You're a good friend, Zoro, she hums as she pulls back. Her voice is terribly fond when she says it. He didn't have to let Nami hit him, probably only did it to make her feel better, and his worry is palpable to Lucy, even without Haki. It's present in the way he keeps tipping an ear to the rest of the crew, clearly audible behind the thin line of trees, and in the way he keeps reaching for Shisui whenever a branch in the forest breaks. Sanji's absence is affecting him just as much as it is the others, even if he's expressing it differently. Zoro doesn't betray discomfort at the compliment, but he does look heavenward, like he can't believe he's stuck with her. She's grinning a little when she pokes him hard in the chest, and she doesn't quite pull off the scolding wag of her finger. Oh well, she tried. But it's not fair to tease Sanji when he's not here. He scowls at her. Lucy rolls her eyes. He's such a dumbass. It shouldn't be as endearing as it is. But then Zoro's demeanor shifts, just a little. The playful grumpiness seeps away, and whatever he's been brooding on takes hold again. The hand that isn't holding hers finds Lucy's hip. His gaze catches her eyes, irises glinting silver. There's something urgent in his face. We need to leave him be, Lucy. Lucy searches his gaze for clues, for something to give her a hint on what's going through his head. Nothing. She really wishes she could use Haki. I know you're worried about him too, Lucy tells him, just a little bit bewildered. She feels her eyebrows pinch together in confusion, and his scowl turns into something just shy of grinding his teeth in frustration. The cook's fine, we need to. There's something you're not saying, Lucy realizes. Zoro blinks in shock, tries to jerk back, but Lucy's hand is already curled around his neck and he only succeeds in pulling them closer together. Lucy, he stops, and she feels a little bad for him because he's traveled through about 15 shades of frustration in the last hour or so, and this seems to be the worst iteration yet. You don't have to tell me, she reassures, because she wasn't accusing him of anything. Zoro's allowed to have secrets. I trust you, she says simply, because she does. He relaxes. It's closer to a deliberate uncoiling than a relieved slump, but eventually his forehead meets hers, their noses brushing with each soft exhalation. Lucy's eyes close without her realizing. The hand at his neck slides down to curl in the fabric of his t-shirt, and she feels the steady rhythm of his heart beneath her palm. Then Zoro takes a deep breath, a short inhale that indicates speech. I know, she interrupts, her eyes still closed. I know. Just, her lips pressed to his, the movement soft and brief. It's more like an oath than a kiss, a promise to speak on the subject more, and soon. Let's just talk to Peckham's. Zoro hesitates for a moment, but then the hand at her hip pulls her closer and he straightens, both arms circling her torso, his right palm cradling her head. Lucy snakes her arms around his waist, content and relaxed as she presses into the space beneath his chin. They don't speak, but his heartbeat is steady beneath her ear, and Zoro's breathing slows as his fingers sweep slowly through her hair. It's enough. The plan taking shape in her head makes her stomach clench unpleasantly in the face of it. The others enter the infirmary eagerly, sharing speculation and ideas in rapid-fire succession amongst themselves. Lucy is the first one through the door, shouting for Peckham's and Cat Viper, and Zoro hears something crash about 3 seconds after she disappears inside. The others exchange fond glances and follow with only marginally less enthusiasm. Zoro rests his katana by the doorframe, and parks himself on the bench built into it. The fit is a little close, but there's just enough room to settle into a seiza. Habit has him reaching out with his haki, and he pulls back with a wince. Zo is loud. He doesn't know how the stronger minks stand it. Even with his haki closed off, it's like a subsonic echo, intangible but always present. He's hoping meditation will make it easier to bear. He was mostly trying to heal himself on the way over here, but now his focus narrows on his blades, their disharmonious song ever present and more distorted than usual. They sing and hum in the back of his mind, unconcerned with slotting together, indifferent to his comfort in the same way a blade is to the blood that soaks its edge. He's been agitated since they arrived. That's probably made his katana worse. That did not mean he was too harsh earlier though, he was just telling it like it is. The blade's chorus rises in pitch and Zoro sinks into them, his focus deep and low. Shisui thrums in thunderous pitch, the song avoids so low it can't be heard. His chest rises and the blade groans with thick chords, an abyss like the emptiness between the stars, a gluttonous black hole, taking as much of Zoro as it can. Zoro breathes out, slow and deliberate. Shisui's song drops lower, inaudible except for the vibrating behind his sternum, throbbing like a heartbeat, inseparable from his own. It's not his fault the cook was captured. It's not the sea witch's fault either, or Brook, or Chopper. It's the goddamn cooks, and they don't have time to wait for him to get his act together. And it's not that Zoro wants to leave Sanji in the hands of Big Mom and his asshole family. Zoro is not one to miss out on opportunities to gloat, and rescuing that asshole would be a perfect opportunity. It's just that he's really certain that it's the opposite of where they need to go. Stupid cook. Stupid cook and the cook's stupid family. He knew Lucy taunting Big Mom like that would come back to bite them in the ass, even if it was pretty hot at the time. The white blade is like a ripple in flat water, discordant and spreading. Watto's ring is tinged in discontent, driven snowpock-marked by sleet. It's a reprimand, a scolding, a call of duty, of honor. A reminder of where his trajectory lies. Onward, upward, until Mahawk is finally deposed. And Lucy is Pirate King, until his victories are lifted high and higher, up to heaven itself. Wano's waiting for them. Kaido is waiting for them. If they don't go, they'll become the Hunted. A band of unestablished pirates without a territory to call their own against an emperor. They won't win unless they take the fight to him, unless they use surprise and the emperor's expectations against him. Sidetracking to get the cook? Going against another emperor? They can't, especially since Sanji. Zoro read the letter. Sanji will be fine. Kitetsu's howls in eager bloodlust. The blades ache nearly painful beside the other two, wild and thirsty like a scream scrapes throats raw. It's Kitetsu that feels the most off-kilter, the most agitated. Zoro tastes tangy copper on his tongue. The black rush of heat and darkness the blade can sense in his heart, and he lets it weep out and into Kitetsu's discordant harmonies, feels them flood together and grow into wailing symphony capped only by Zoro's careful control as thoughts of hot blood spilling over Mac red of life sprayed against skin. He's never sure if it's his own blood that Kitetsu craves, or their enemies. Zoro suspects it's a bit of both. Lucy won't want to leave Sanji to his own devices. The circumstances of his departure are too weird, and the crew members that witnessed it were too concerned, too upset. And the whole crew descending on Big Mom's territory, that's asking for trouble. That's like picking a fight with a hurricane when there's a tsunami on their heels. There's a solution here, but it's, you've got a freaky aura, Roranoa ya. Zoro blinks out of the meditation, his connection with the blades loosening and returning to its normal thrum at the back of his head. It's several shades darker outside now, the torches in the yard the only means to see by. Law strides toward him, a polar bear and the entirety of his crew trailing behind him. They're loud and dressed in horrible jumpsuits, and most of them are eyeing Zoro warily. But Law looks relaxed with them at his back, and calmer than he thought the guy capable of. Zoro figures a crew's a crew, even if their captain is a crabby emo bastard, He grunts in greeting. The others inside? Law asks, nodding toward the building. Zoro unfolds from his seiza and stands, fixing his katana at his hip. The bruise must be gone already, or Law would have commented on it. Yeah, Zoro says, rolling his shoulders. They'll probably be out soon. He can't imagine Lucy staying still much longer than that. Law's crew relaxes as their captain edges closer, undaunted by Zoro's freaky aura. We need to make a plan, Law grouses. He's got both hands shoved in his pockets, his katana resting against his shoulder and looped through his elbow. Kaido knows where this place is. Zoro narrows his eyes, glaring at nothing in particular. All three blades ring in urgent song, in warning. The cook's missing, Zoro tells him. He was probably blackmailed. Law's expression doesn't change, but the crew members behind him erupt in concerned muttering. It's the polar bear that speaks up though. What? Hey Law, we didn't know he was blackmailed. He makes really good food, and he's super nice and strong. He helped save Zoe. We should go after him and help out. Law shoves him off, his eyebrow ticking up in irritation. We're not going into Big Mom's territory, Law growls. We've got to take care of Kaido. He's the biggest threat right now, and we don't have any more time to dodge him. He's directing this to Zoro, like he doesn't already know. Zoro glares right back, because he doesn't like being told what to do by anyone, but especially not crabby emo bastards who hate bread. Lucy bursts through the door just then, her energy as boundless and sunny as ever. It cuts through the tension like a hot knife, and Zoro finds himself relaxing, just a bit. She whirls on Zoro first, eyes bright and the fishnet skirt flaring out with her speed. Her fingers are splayed out at her sides like she's so pleased to see him that she can't contain herself, and her smile is brighter than the torches that light the clearing. Shit, a reaction like that could go to a guy's head. Zoro, did you hear all that? Sanji's on a place called Whole Cake Island and that guy Peckham's will. She blinks, like her brain finally caught up with her eyes, and then she turns to Law and his crew. Oh hey. It's Torao's crew. Hi, Torao. Straw Hat yaw, Law growls, and Zoro feels his back tense at the other captain's tone. We can't go after the cook. Lucy hums, a little confused. Well, yeah, I know you're not going after Sanji. She looks around Law, eyeing Beppo with a slight pout. Hey, why do you get a polar bear on your crew? He's so cool. The polar bear squeals. Ah, Law, did you hear that? She thinks I'm the cool one. Several members of Law's crew snicker while the others cheer their first mate on. Straw Hat yaw, Kaido knows where this place is. He knows we're here. The longer we wait before going after him, the more danger this country is in. Law looks pointedly at the destruction that seems to litter every corner of Zoe. Besides the newly erected infirmary, there's debris caught in and around the tree line, broken branches, and soot from the fires Jack's men tried to light. They can't take another attack right now. Lucy frowns at him, like he's the one who doesn't get it. I know all that. She takes a deep breath, and directs the next sentence over her shoulder, her eyes firmly pinned on Zoro. That's why I'm going by myself. Zoro's first reaction is protest, mulish and stubborn, because the last time Lucy went off by herself she nearly died and they didn't see each other for 2 years and he refuses to. He swallows the bile down, forces himself not to speak until he can be sure of what he'll say. He knew it was coming. There aren't many options that let them go after Kaido and confront Sanji on his idiocy. It still makes something unpleasant and angry twist in his stomach, something hot and furious and desperate. Goddamn the fucking cook. He chose a hell of a time to go missing. Lucy turns back to Law, but her stance betrays her attention, and there's an apologetic twist in her lips. Straw Hat yaw, Law growls, and Lucy's stance widens at his tone because he sounds angry. Enough that it makes Zoro reach for Shisui's hilt, makes him want to put himself between Lucy and the other captain. He stays himself, barely. That is not what we agreed on. Lucy's back straightens, and all her focus lands squarely on Law. Zoro tastes metal on his tongue, a faint warning of a predator in his midst. Law's glare only deepens, undaunted. His crew goes quiet. I'm not abandoning you, Lucy promises. A faint breeze teases her skirt, her hair. There's power in her stance, a steadiness that's impossible not to trust, an intangible quality that skepticism can't survive. It's beautiful and an image of Lucy at her best, and it rents something in Zoro, because goddammit it's only been a few weeks since Sabaody, and his plan was to more or less never let her out of his sight again. And I'm not abandoning my crew. Law looks at her for a moment longer. Then his posture shifts from aggressive to merely irritated, and his crew starts up their playful teasing again, muttering about how scary the new Straw Hats are. Zoro is honestly having a hard time paying attention to anything that isn't his girlfriend, even as a desperate sort of denial claws its way through his chest. He understands. He really does. With any other crew member, under any other circumstances, Zoro would probably wholeheartedly agree with her, would laugh at the idea that they should do anything but charge Big Mom's territory and only leave when they got straight answers from the cook and Zoro's had a chance to gloat mercilessly over the rescue. But it's not. It's Sanji, who emphatically doesn't need their help, and Kaido, who will come after them soon if they don't surprise him first. Lucy twists so that their shoulders bump, but she's still facing Law. The other captain eyes the movement, but says nothing, and he lets his first mate distract him a moment later. On any other subject, with any other issue, Zoro wouldn't have to ask Lucy to trust him on this. Would just explain everything outright. But here he can't explain what he knows without telling her things that will only hurt her. Things that would only reopen wounds long since healed. Lucy's fingers brush his. He tightens his grip on Kitetsu. The rest of the crew dribbles out of the infirmary, a few of them casting unsure looks at Lucy, and semi-hopeful looks at Zoro. If she notices, she doesn't let on, her presence still saturated in that rock-steady confidence, the same self-assured gravitas she's brought to every adventure between here and Shellstown. She's good at putting people at ease, at convincing people that her way is the best one, that doubt is a stranger who never visits her. Lucy's aura relaxes everyone almost immediately, with the exception of himself and Nami, who would kick God himself in the balls if it meant protecting Un. Even she stops shooting worried looks Lucy's way and instead resumes glaring at Zoro. Zoro looks away from the crew. Kitetsu burns under his palm. Lucy reaches for his hand a moment later, more insistent this time. He nearly pulls away, furious at himself and a bit at her, but decides against it at the very last second. Lucy doesn't say anything, or even look at him, too busy projecting self-assured cheer and being everyone else's North Star to indulge in something private and personal. But their fingers twine together, Lucy's slotting between his as easily as they always do. Trust me, Zoro wants to demand of her. Trust me when I say he'll be fine. Don't do this. But he knows she trusts him. That's why Lucy's even considering splitting up in the first place. Trust isn't the issue here. It's trying to choose between a hurricane and a tsunami, and plotting a course through them both knowing something must be sacrificed. Zoro can speak to her about this later. Explain what he knows without explaining the parts that will hurt her. Convince her to listen to him, later. Now, he smooths her knuckles with his thumb, she squeezes back. If Zoro has learned one thing about the minks in the few hours they've been here, it's that the minks love to party, and they're good at it. They have beer flowing by the keg, they make great food, and Brook provides music that blends well with the strange lutes the minks made out of trees and the drums they beat over stretched palm leaves. The atmosphere is warm and brilliant and close, in a way their celebratory parties usually aren't. That's probably to be expected since this only involves a couple dozen people, not the several hundred they usually clock in at. It's nice, and the not overwhelming number of people enables him to stay within earshot of Lucy, which is a plus. Even if he aches a little every time he hears her voice. If he's had a few more drinks than he normally would, well, no one's going to notice. The minks are friendly, and friendlier with liquor in them. Zoro outdrinks 4 of them before they concede to his superior ability to consume alcohol and start to jostle around with him good-naturedly. It's nice after what has shaped up to be a rough day. Normally he'd go blow off steam with the cook, pick a fight or 3, but, well. We need to talk. Zoro looks over his shoulder to see Nami standing behind him with her arms crossed and still wearing Lucy's hat. Her gaze is steady, but Zoro suspects the redness in her cheeks means she's been drinking as much as he has. What about? He asks grumpily, taking another swig. Goddamn this day, seriously. Nami's the only asshole on this elephant who'd be a proper drinking partner, but she's been pissed at him. She's not having any bullshit though. You know what about, dummy? Nami's left hand comes up toward the hat, then shifts away self-consciously. Can we just, she gestures helplessly to the infirmary, where there's plenty of empty rooms to have a nice heart-to-heart in. Zoro can think of few things he wants to do less right now than have a heart-to-heart with anyone. But Lucy catches his eye from across the party, glancing between him and Nami eagerly, and when she smiles at him it's brilliant and makes his heart seize in a way that's painful, like she's already an island away in an ocean out of reach, but fuck it, he's never been able to say no to that smile. Fine, he agrees. He downs the rest of his beer and briefly considers scrounging around for another mug, but the impatient tapping of Nami's foot has him reluctantly deciding against it. Sooner he gets this over with, sooner he can drink. Nami leads the way. Zoro wonders if anyone will be particularly upset if he goes off to hack some trees into usable lumber after this, and promptly decides he doesn't care either way. The room Nami picks isn't terribly isolated. It's on the first floor, and the glow of the party is visible through the window. The walls are the same mustard color as the rest of the Minx houses, and there's nothing but a cot and a small table inside. There's no door, which is another feature the Minx seem to like in their architecture. They aren't big on privacy, and the only doors he's seen here have been on the outer wall of a building. There's a moment of awkward silence where Nami fidgets and Zoro wishes he was anywhere else, really. Nami mumbles, staring at the bed, which is pretty much nowhere near the door, where Zoro stands. She looks like someone shoved dirty socks under her nose. I'm sorry. For earlier, I guess. And oh, wow, Zoro has zero ideas on how he's supposed to respond to this. Fuck. It's not a big deal, Zoro tells her, because it isn't really, to him. Nami blinks a couple of times, and then her mouth firms into a thin line and her face grows ruddy with anger. Don't you have something to say? She asks pointedly, hands on her hips. Zoro has no idea what she's talking about, but her tone pisses him off enough to respond. Nope, he replies, and he's just barely sober enough to keep the darkness of his aura away from her, but he can't help the irritation in his frame or the exasperation in his voice. This is apparently more than enough to set Nami off, because she starts toward him, arms waving above her head and shooting to her waist. You're unbelievable, you know. She starts, I apologized and you just, She gestures angrily to him, like she doesn't know how to articulate her frustrations anymore. I don't know what you want, see which, he grouses. I didn't do anything wrong sounds too whiny. I want you to apologize for talking about Sanji-kun that way, Nami shouts, eyes flashing, for saying we should leave him. Zoro scowls at her. No, Nami shakes her head, disbelieving. I don't get it. I know you care about Sanji-kun. No, I know you do. Don't deny it, so I don't. Why would you say the things you did? Why would you even suggest we leave him behind? Because we should, Zoro insists, because there's a strange dread boiling in his stomach, and it's not going to go away until the entire crew sets foot on Wano's soil, and looses whole and hale and within arm's reach. Nami stares at him in mute, frozen anger. Her fists tremble, just a bit. Zoro glowers at her, uncompromising and staunch in his position. They shouldn't go after their cook, they shouldn't split up. It's not like you, she accuses, bewildered and angry. Even when it's Sanji-kun, you're usually right behind Lucy, running after him. The cook has a plan, he defends, a little angry because this is the umpteenth time today that he's been accused of not giving a shit, and honestly, he wouldn't be here if he didn't. Dunno what it is, but he's got one. So, she demands. How could we not help him? He would do it for us. For you, she says, eyes narrowed, still furious but searching. That's not the point, Zoro growls. Kaido doesn't care, and he's gunning for us. And then, because he's actually a little more drunk than he usually gets, he adds, and that's not what the cook sounds like when he gives up anyway, so. What? The question comes soft, surprised, just shy of hurt. Zoro looks at Nami only to see her eyes widening in understanding, the fury present but making room for comprehension. You know something, she says after a moment, the soft light of realization in her tone. Zoro scowls, discomfited, thrown by having said too much. I know shit. He deflects weakly, kind of hoping she'll take the bait and tease him. The cook would take the bait, damn it. You asked to see the note, she remembers, completely uninterested in bait. Before you decided we should leave him be, you asked to see the note. Fuck. Lucy figured it out by way of intuition, he's pretty sure, but with Nami, He hates how smart she is sometimes, and… I don't know, Nami says eagerly, like he's just confirmed every suspicion she had. I don't know at all. But you didn't say anything until you knew what he said in the note. Zoro shifts, uncomfortable and a little too buzzed to properly see if he cried. Why did you ask to see the note? Nami presses. She takes a step closer, and Zoro shifts away from the door to get away from her. No reason. That's a lie, Nami refutes. She's following his path around the room, but she doesn't crowd him when he heads for the window. Why did you ask to see the note? He doesn't respond. Nami's voice firms in its demands. I'll tell Lucy about this if you don't answer. Zoro closes his eyes. The breeze is humid, but it feels cool against his skin. Lucy already knows as much as Nami does, and there's a good chance she'll ignore it, trust him the way she said she would. But given how hung up Nami is on this, she's might push him to explain in the name of healing the rift. He is so goddamn tired of this goddamn day, don't tell Lucy. There's a beat before Nami replies, baffled, why? Fucking flaming piles of snail shit in hell, just. Fine, Nami replies eventually, her voice full of suspicion, what? Wanted to see if he gave up. You, there's frank surprise in her voice, uncertainty, and she sounds completely bewildered. Okay. You wanted to see if he gave up. Why, how do you know what? Zoro seriously, really, does not want to have this conversation. His head feels cottony and his emotions are all over the place and too close to the surface under the coercion of the alcohol, and these are things long buried, things he's long since laid to rest. She calls his name again, and she sounds concerned. You can't tell Lucy, he warns, turning to look at Nami over his shoulder, trying to convey the seriousness of this as best he can. It'll hurt her. Nami searches his face for just a moment, but there's no suspicion or distrust there, only concern, confusion. Lucy has always been a point of common ground between them, a place of solidarity. Nami trusts him unequivocally to have Lucy's best interests in mind, and maybe it's because of that, the steadfast fact of his love and loyalty to their captain, that there's no doubt in Nami's eyes when she swears, I won't. And fuck, maybe he's drunker than he meant to be if he's seriously considering bringing this shit up. He turns back to the window. Or maybe it's because the goddamn elephant is shaking his brains loose. He opens his mouth and actually tells her. On Thriller Bark, Zoro admits, and goddamn he wishes he found more liquor to bring along. I made a deal with Kuma. Idiot tried to sacrifice himself instead. Nami's breath catches. Zoro doesn't look at her. Fucking Cook was going on and on about finding a replacement and telling everyone he was sorry and shit. He waves a hand to indicate the universe in general. Nothing like that in the note. Cook even said he'd be back. What? Nami's voice trails off, and he imagines she's matching what he's saying to her own memories. Kuma wanted Lucy. How did you get him to? Zoro's feet fall into the opening stance of Sensei's favorite form. I offered my head instead. Knocked the cook out when he tried to do the same. Made Kuma honor it with me. But Nami's voice is firmer now, her brain almost audibly whirring into full analysis mode. Lucy was fully healed. How? He pushed Lucy's injuries and shit out of her. He ignores Nami's sharp gasp, taking it for surprise. Said it would kill me if I took it all on myself, but he'd leave her and everyone alone. Zoro, she grabs his arm, but he shakes her off, annoyed. If he stops to answer every single one of her questions, he'll never get this out. He said it was everything from the battle, her pain, fatigue. Zoro, what? He demands, spinning around to glare at her. But Nami isn't looking at him. She's looking at the door, where Luce is standing with shock on her face and 3 mugs of beer in her hands. Fuck. Her eyes are wide, fixed on him. There's a strange kind of terror in her face, something she's never directed his way before. It makes him feel sick. The room is silent. Luce's hands shake in a fine tremble, the liquor spilling over the rim and her fingers in spasms, and she just stares and stares and stares, her eyes faintly glazed, like she's not really seeing him, like she's far away. He can't stand it. Lucy, he takes a step forward. The room is small enough that he could cross it in a stride or two. Luce's eyes flit down to his haramaki, to where the scars from Thriller Bark lay beneath, the tissue pale and raised and gnarled, patterned like someone tried to pull him apart from the inside out. They'd be grotesque if either of them thought of scars that way, deep and gruesome enough to be forever etched in his skin. He stops. The light in Lucy's eyes changes from shock and sick terror to something else entirely. It's like the calm before the storm, the tension in the air before a hurricane rolls over the waves. It's rage, and Zoro honestly can't tell if it's directed at him, Kuma, or herself. It seems like forever before she speaks, but when she does her voice is low and her eyes burn. You won. It's not a question. It's barely a confirmation of something she already knows, and for once he can't tell what she's thinking. I didn't lose, he corrects, because the difference means something when it comes to that fight, and he spent 2 years training to make sure such distinctions would no longer apply to him no matter the opponent. Her eyes still burn. Her whole frame is stiff with tension. He doesn't look away, lets her search for what she needs. Finally, she nods. Zoro suspects it's mostly to herself. Slowly, deliberately, she turns to set the beer on the table by the doorway, her face turned away. Nami opens her mouth, one hand reaching out. Zoro catches her gaze, shakes his head. Lucy straightens. She doesn't look at either of them, and even though Zoro aches to hold her, comfort her, whisper promises and reassurance, there's some instinct that holds him back. When she turns to leave, her steps restrained and stiff and so unlike her, he doesn't follow, doesn't call after her again. Her footsteps are steady even as they fade down the hallway. Shit, Nami swears softly, scrubbing a hand over face. Shit, he agrees feelingly. Shit. Of all the things in the world of which Lucy was ignorant, sacrifice was not among them. Sacrifice was spliced into her from an early age, with her grandfather invoking things like conviction and adulthood, and sometimes our dreams pull us away from each other, Lucy. She saw it in Ace, over and over again. Ace, who was so scared to let her in, who faced ostracization and the anger of strangers with his back to her, fists raised, who gave up a dream to rule for the love of a father, a family on the seas. She found sacrifice in herself, in her training, in her devotion to her dream. She knew at 7 that she would sacrifice everything, anything she had in pursuit of a goal, with her life on the line and her heart pumping closer and closer to its inevitable end. It was in Usopp, Sanji, Chopper, Frankie, all of her crew members, really, who gave up safer lives and people they loved to sail with her, a reflection of her own determination as they pursued their dreams at her side. In Nami, who sacrificed everything for a village she loved. In Robin, who nearly lost herself to sacrifice, who nearly became a sacrifice herself. In Mary, who carried them as far as she could before breaking under the weight of her love for them. In herself again, when she was willing to put her dream and her life and whatever heartbeats she had left on the altar of her whole identity in exchange for Ace's life. Ace died for her anyway, giving everything he had and more. So no, Lucy is not unfamiliar with sacrifice. Vaguely, Lucy registers that she doesn't know Zoe's forests well at all, that the party has long since faded into the foliage behind her, and that her crew was, in all likelihood, looking for her at this very moment. Guilt pricks at her. She remembers Zoro's offer, I didn't lose. She hangs a left at the next fork in the worn trail, and picks up the pace, nausea curling in her gut. Distance, pain, a dream, a life. Lucy knows sacrifice like the negative image of her history, an imprint of everything bright, even as she holds that strange burden in her palms and pushes further and further into it every time she trains or fights, and with every bond she forges, deepens, cherishes. There was only one thing that she claimed as hers that she wasn't willing to give up, ever, and that was her crew. Her crew, who she promised would never be alone, who she loved so much they helped her reclaim her sanity even in the worst moment of her life, and who she promised to aid in their own quests if they would aid in hers. She was uncompromisingly selfish about them, always. So how could she have missed this? Zoro tried to die for her, made a deal for her. Would have died, if not for the strength he carried in him like the air he breathed. And he did it when she was weak, unknowing, useless. And Sanji tried to do the same. What kind of captain allows such a thing? An ignorant one. A weak one. One who definitely wasn't the Pirate King. She remembers Zoro, bloody and limp, like something exploded inside him. The squelch of his bandages as Chopper removed them from glistening tissue, tacky with blood and yellow with iodine. Lucy snarls aloud and lands a punch in the center of a gnarled trunk. The bark shatters beneath her fist, wood splintering, and it does nothing to abate the howling fury. The red at the edges of her vision, the fuzzy white noise in her head. She didn't even look for the threat, back then. She can't remember if someone told her it had passed. Lucy assumed Zoro had beaten it, whatever it was. And yet, Zoro only lied to her once. Lucy always knew it was a lie, knew that when he said no clue, he was keeping something important from her. Lucy knew and she didn't push him, trusted him and the others. Even when Sanji got all twitchy and Robin went quiet while the others speculated on what could have possibly laid their swordsman out for weeks. Apparently, the answer was Lucy. Lucy in her own weakness, her own pain and fatigue. It would kill me if I took it all on myself. Lucy wants to scream, so she does. A few birds squawk in irritation and escape beyond the forest canopy, leaving Lucy to sink slightly into the rough, hoary skin of Zo. She shakes a bit, aching in ways she doesn't understand, and prowls deeper into the forest. Zoro had no right to that pain. It was hers, she earned it. He didn't have the right to take the burden from her and die in the process. And she knows he didn't die, but it's only because Zoro is strong, stronger than anyone she knows. He was supposed to die for her, and Lucy almost doesn't swallow the marrow-deep urge to check on him with her haki in time to save herself from opening up to the aching infinity of Zo's presence. Now is not the time to pass out. She has somewhere to be. Zo rumbles deep and eternal beneath her, steady and blinding like a dying sun. And if she tries to use her haki now she's going to melt her brain. Lucy takes a deep breath, or tries at least. The draw is shaky and the exhale is too harsh, but she does it a few more times until she can trust herself not to destroy anything else. Zo's forests smell vegetal and damp, almost cloying. It makes Lucy want to scratch at the itch beneath her skin. The urge to go protect her crew is strong, nearly overwhelming, but there is nothing for Lucy to defend against. Her opportunity to do something about this is 2 years and change in the past, and all she did was clean his fucking swords. The scar on her palm burns, the already bittersweet memory steeped in a new layer of horror, of sacrifice. No wonder Kitetsu cut her open. He was probably furious with her. That was fair. Lucy remembers being pretty furious with herself at the time. Remembers using those memories of Zoro's wounds. The pool of blood they found him in. The stillness of his body. As a reminder on Ruskina. She can recall the images easily, the pain of them sharp like the jagged edges of broken glass, even now. Whatever anger, guilt, protective wrath she felt then and in the years between, it wasn't enough. It was nowhere near enough. Was she really so careless, then? Was she really so willing to let things go, with consequences so narrowly avoided? And Zoro was supposed to be pursuing his own dream. He's going to be the world's greatest swordsman, and he can't do that if he's dead. The first promise between them was a deal, an oath, for Lucy to lay down her life if she ever got in the way of his dream. And sure, maybe neither of them expected the way their relationship developed, but did Zoro really come back only because he loves her? Does he even believe in her as a capta? Lucy pauses in her rampage, fists clenching in an effort to grasp for calm. There's an inoffensive branch in her face that disintegrates right down to the trunk when she unleashes her frustration on it, packing undue wrath into the punch. Zoro wouldn't follow someone he didn't believe in. It was as simple as that. He'd find her after achieving his dream if that were the case. He wouldn't have met up with them in Sabaody if he didn't wish to follow her. At the very least, he wouldn't patronize her like that. No, Zoro is on her crew because he wants to be, because he believes she will be Pirate King. Because despite her own weakness putting him and his dream at risk, he is somehow still loyal to her, in the way only a first mate can be. It probably doesn't hurt that he loves her, but she's sure he still believes in her, she's sure of it. And, she's known for a long time now, almost since the deal was struck, that their original pact had morphed into something new and aspirational. That their dreams would be achieved together or not at all. Lucy just hadn't known her life managed to surpass his dream entirely. Maybe she should have guessed, but she didn't. They're not separate things. She gets that. Her life and his dream and his life and her dream. They're all tangled up together now, in each other, in the rest of the crew. But when she asked them to join her, when she asked them to follow her to Raftel, she was asking them to risk their not hers. She thought, then and now, that she'd be able to guarantee their lives with her own for anything else. It hurts to realize that she was too late. That one of them had already suffered for her weakness. That 2 of them tried to take it on their own shoulders. Lucy takes a deep breath, forcing the fury to dissipate. There is nothing to hurt, nothing to protect her crew from. There is just the strange, ornery wildness of Zou, and the soft noises of the nocturnal wildlife. The air is humid, and beneath her feet is the titanic pressure of a creature as old as the millennium. Lucy takes another deep breath and tries not to recall the way Zoro's blood looked, soaking into the earth on Thriller Bark. She's so angry, but there's nothing to be done about any of it, because he was injured and healed and recovered and far stronger by the time she even knew she'd committed a crime against him. That is how completely she's failed her swordsman, even if he doesn't see it that way. Lucy bites her lip in a bid to stop crying. She fails. She scrubs her eyes with her fists and presses on. She wants Zoro. She usually does, at times like these. But right now she has a job to do, and she's filled with a sickening terror, and she's so angry because Zoro tried to die for her. She'll talk to Zoro, eventually. Just not this second. She has a job to do. She needs to make sure none of this happens ever again. No one dies for Lucy. Especially not her crew. They are the one part of herself she will not sacrifice to her dreams. The one thing she must protect. The need to ensure this is almost overwhelming, consuming in its totality. Her skin itches. The weight of Shanks' hat is keenly felt even in its absence, and the night air is thick around her as the gnarled boughs of green-grayed trees moan in the wind. The quiet murmur of the forest is devastating, isolating even as Lucy crashes through it, and far above her head the sky hangs black and heavy. Lucy hasn't felt so alone since those solitary nights on Ruskina, when the stars looked so far away and eternally out of reach. The stars are dim tonight, too weak to guide. Lucy hurries on, tears falling in a steady, uncontrollable stream, saltwater thick on her cheeks. It takes about 5 seconds after Lucy's footsteps disappear down the infirmary hallway for Zoro to realize he shouldn't have let her go. This is mostly because he has no earthly idea what she's about to do with this information, and despite his shock, despite the panic making a home in his chest, and every other goddamn thing about this day, he's not stupid enough to think Monkey D. Lucy would just walk away from a fight angry without some sort of destination in mind. God, her face. Zoro did that. Fuck, Zoro whispers, making for the exit. Fuck. Go after her, dummy, Nami agrees. Her amber eyes are wide, her face pale and drawn. The panic he sees in her does nothing to calm his own. Lucy's straw hat hanging around Nami's neck seems to mock him and his stupidity. Zoro sprints out the door, and discovers rather quickly that the forests of Zou were not terribly amenable to a person attempting to locate someone who didn't want to be found. The foliage is dense, full of endless nooks and crannies a person of Lucy's size and ability could tuck themselves into, and there's just enough animal activity to prevent him from hearing much past the squelching of his boots in elephant hide. And between that and his occasional cursing and cutting of trees and vines, Zoro makes enough noise to actually be the damn elephant. He hopes Lucy isn't mad enough to run away again. Lucy is pissed, agile, and spent her gremlin years leaping around a hostile jungle and somehow not dying. A one-sided game of hide and seek would not be in his favor here without Haki to help. As it is, he has only a vague idea of the direction she went, and every time he tries to sense it he's plagued with an uncharacteristic uncertainty. He can only hope luck is with him, as it hasn't been this entire goddamn day. It isn't lost on Zoro that this whole revelation could have gone better. Or never would have happened at all, maybe, if he just kept his damn mouth shut. He probably wouldn't be stomping through the woods following nothing but a vague and not working so great gut instinct to locate his wayward girlfriend if he just told the sea witch to mind her own damn business. He would have, except he was drunk and didn't want to be fighting with her in the first place. Fuck, he wouldn't have let her leave at all if he'd realized she was so freaked she was fucking off into the forest. He just wanted to give her space. If that's what she needed. It seemed like what she was asking for, and he was surprised enough he wasn't sure, but her face. Lucy was never meant to know about this shit. Especially not now, after everything that happened with her brother, when it could hurt her more. He swallows, remembering Lucy's terror, the flatness of her voice. His palms itch with an animal desperation he doesn't know how to resolve. His hands fist reflexively, his teeth grinding. Zoro can't quite convince his jaw to relax, and elects to ignore it while Kitetsu slices through another thorny bramble. Kitetsu's hilt burns. Hot enough to sting. a howl in the edge of the blade. He doesn't regret it, is the thing. He can't apologize for something he doesn't regret. He regrets telling Nami anything about it, regrets that Lucy overheard. But he can't regret taking her place in Kuma's deal, can't regret his conviction, his belief in her dream, his scars. They're proof of his loyalty, his devotion, his willingness to face any challenge. He won't apologize for protecting her. He can't. Part of Zoro wants to blame the cook for this, for leaving at such a stupid time where they couldn't go after him like they should. But it wasn't Curly Brow who let the secret slip after one too many drinks and a headache that threatened to split his skull in two. Zoro is the only dumbfuck that caused this mess. He should have read Nami in ages ago. That would have prevented all of this. Lucy wouldn't have gotten that look on her face. It was worrying. Lucy walking away like that. Lucy hates being alone. Only does it when she's trying to keep her vulnerabilities to herself. She lets Zoro in at times like these though. Lets him guard her soft spots, lets him take care of her, lets him offer comfort. She's never run away from him before, never rejected his company. It makes an anxious knot twist in his gut. Her distress was palpable. Like a distant thunderstorm, encroaching on the horizon as ozone charged the air. He could taste it like lead on his tongue. The fear in her eyes, like all her worst nightmares, came to life. He's almost glad he can't use hockey on Zoe without passing out, that he couldn't feel whatever she did in that moment, that he won't have the memory of it. That look on her face, he never wants to see it again. Especially not because of him, like he broke something inside her, something important. He wonders if she's alone right now, if she's blaming herself. At the thought, Kitetsu burns, grinding in his chest like hot metal, and the blade's screams churn and scrape against Zoro's own impulse to flatten the whole goddamn forest in an effort to find 5 feet 2 inches captain, because he doesn't know where she is. Zoro always knows where Lucy is. He's always been able to find her, no matter the circumstance. And he's not sure if it's his closed-off hockey or his budding hangover or his general misery that's preventing it, but the 45th branch Zoro bats out of the way, snaps back and hits him in the back of the head. He scowls, curses, and uses Kitetsu to hack off the branch, and verbally condemns this fucking moldy scab of a country on the back of a deafeningly loud elephant to every level of hell there is. He adjusts his grip on Kitetsu, his knuckles creaking with tension. He turns to the right, where the way is clearer, and suddenly the burning hilt in his hands goes unnaturally cold, like ice, and altogether too noticeable in the muggy uses, eyeing the katana with suspicion. He listens a little harder to the bloodthirsty wailing of his most quarrelsome blade. There's no indication of attitude. Well, no more than to be expected, and no vicious outpouring of bloodlust into his soul. Just the blade, relatively quiet, if responding to Zoro's own anxiety. Curiously, Zoro turns back to his original heading, straight into some alien-looking bramble. Kitetsu's hilt grows blisteringly hot, like holding onto solid flame. Zoro raises a skeptical eyebrow at the katana, a wild, desperate notion churning in his thoughts. Are you leading me to Lucy? There's a slight waver in the discordant wails that makes up Kitetsu's presence in his head, but otherwise nothing, not from any of Zoro's katanas. Zoro frowns, purses his lips. He turns to his left this time. The hilt goes cold again, the change in temperature dramatic and clear. Zoro goes from holding flame to holding ice in a millisecond. Zoro frowns harder, thinking quickly. His blades have always been fond of Lucy, weirdly fond. He assumed it was an extension of his own feelings for his captain, his own affection. His blades were keyed to his emotional state, after all. It's why they spent a year plus on Kuraigana screaming at him non-stop before he admitted he loves her. It doesn't make sense though. Kitetsu shouldn't know where Lucy is right now, or how to find her. And even if it did know, it was weirdly accommodating of the blade to clue Zoro in. Then again, Kitetsu is a cursed blade. It's constantly trying to get him murdered, and if it's thirsty, then Zoro's blood would quench it as well as an enemy. It could be leading him into a trap, or away from Lucy. Zoro hesitates for a moment more, and then starts hacking at the brambles, Kitetsu's hilt burning in his palm. Zoe is a relatively safe island. The minks were cheerful and friendly and the people happy, so far as he could tell. The danger was already dealt with by the twirly hat crew, and the land here seemed protected, in a way most of the islands they visited weren't. He was unlikely to run into real danger aside from his angry girlfriend. Maybe Kitetsu is trying to kill him. Zoro presses on, his progress no quicker through the dense brush, but at least it wasn't directionless. Following his cursed, murderous katana is not the weirdest thing he's ever done for Lucy, and it's not like he has a better option at the moment. The forest passes by under his feet, the sick feeling in his gut making the distance feel endless, even as he picks up his pace. There's something wild about Zo's forests, something incendiary lying dormant amongst the organic cycle of growth and decay. It vibrates in the air around him, a strange balance of frenetic expansion and equanimous calm that does nothing to slow his frantic heartbeat. "Did you win?" Lucy asked him. The fact that he can't say he did, even 2 years after the fact, pisses him off, and he barely feels the burn of Kitetsu's hilt. Somehow he's ended up playing hot and cold with his stubbornest katana in a near impassable forest, and he doesn't even know what he's going to say to his missing girlfriend once he finds her, because he regrets nothing about Thriller Bark except his own weakness. Zoro cuts through a vine, stumbles into a tree, and nearly gouges out his one good eye with a branch because this is just the best fucking day. Above him the waning moon hangs fat in the sky, draining all light from the stars, and Zoro keeps moving despite the dread and guilt mixing with the panic in his gut. Lucy starts sprinting as the forest thins out. With the wind given enough space to breathe, it digs its fingers into her clothes, brushes the heat off her skin. It's gentle, reassuring, and carries the scent of the sea. Lucy ignores this, pelting full tilt down the slope of Zoe's back. When she sees the pale marigold of the city gate, she reaches out and slingshots through them, just for the minor burst of speed it brings. She doesn't expect to spot Frankie, Robin, and Brooke on the other side, looking down the back legs of the elephant, but they're there all the same. And when Lucy lands a few meters behind them, it's Robin who notices her first. "Sencho," Robin calls, her voice carrying a note of alarm. Robin rarely calls her that anymore, not since they got her back from the Marines. Lucy must look terrible if she's concerned her crew that much. Lucy doesn't look away from her goal, but she does nod to Robin in acknowledgement. It does not put her archaeologist at ease, if the way she stands and turns to her is anything to go by. Aneki. Where are you going?" Frankie gets to his feet as she walks past her crew, shadowing her as she strides up to the edge of the elephant. "To get Sanji," she replies brusquely, looking over the edge. Sunny is colorful enough that she can spot her even in the dark of the waves. The trick will be getting the timing right so Lucy lands on the deck, or at least within gum-gum range. "It's the middle of the night, Lucy-san." Brooke says it gently, but there's a question there. Lucy doesn't really have time for it. "Have to get Sanji," she repeats. Kinemon and Kanjuro are about halfway up to the elephant's back, almost to where the leg met the hip. "Well, yeah, Aneki, but now?" All three of them are on their feet, forming a loose semi-circle around her back. "Why not wait until morning?" "Because I have to bring Sanji back here." "Okay." She's got the timing down. She spent a lot of time examining how fast she free falls. "Then I'm going to tie him and Zoro to a tree until they promise to never do that again." Conqueror's Haki cracks her voice, and it startles Zoe as it ripples out from her, shuddering to a standstill in its surprise. Far below her, Kinemon and Kanjuro flip over backwards on whatever the blue blob is supposed to be. "Oops." "What?" Frankie asks, bewildered. "What did they do? It can't be recent." "Hey, they'll be fine. Kanjuro can just draw them a giant trampoline or something." "Yeah, look, big raft, orange blob, and now they're climbing again." Lucy will have to apologize for ruining their progress on the way down. "All right. Jump when the leg is fully extended, in 3, 2, 1. "Wait, Aneki." Lucy jumps, but before she's even dropped a meter 50 disembodied hands grasp her limbs to stop her progress. She can't break the grip of the hands without hurting. "Robin, let me go." Robin does, but only after Frankie's giant metal hand closes over Lucy's torso and pulls her back from the edge. Lucy struggles in his grip, glaring daggers over her shoulder. Lucy could break the hold, but not without a genuine fight. The cyborg brings her around to face the three of them, concern and confusion written all over his face, and mirrored on the other two's. Frankie, let me go. It's not quite in order, not yet. Lucy doesn't want to have to make simple things like this in order. A good captain doesn't need to. There's conflict written all over Frankie's face, like he wants to comply but is equally afraid of releasing her. She intensifies her glare. Frankie lets her down, but he's careful to put the three of them between Lucy and the Sunny. Lucy can't find a way past the rage burning through her to care, and punches a tree so hard it falls over out of sheer frustration because even now she can't just walk away from her crew when they're begging her not to. Lucy-san, Brooke asks gently, his voice soft, like she's something fragile right now and not a hair's breadth away from exploding. What happened? And it might be the way he asks with kindness, compassion, and honest confusion. It might be the guilt still lingering in Frankie's expression for stopping her. It might be that Lucy can see Robin's hands clenched at her sides and her furrowed eyebrows. Tension in her body that Lucy isn't sure she's seen before. But somehow the question gets through to her, and Lucy feels the rage seep out of her slowly, like a punctured balloon. Lucy's being a bad captain right now. She's making her crew worried and insecure. So Lucy takes a deep breath and in as few words as possible, because even recounting the story is making something like a black hole open up in her chest. How dare he? How dare he? When Lucy finishes, Brooke and Robin share a look Lucy doesn't understand. Frankie just sighs, his big shoulders drooping and a frown etched onto his face. What a mess, he mutters. But then he looks Lucy in the eye, bearing a strength that Lucy takes pride in even now. I get you're upset, Sencho. And Cook Bro would need a good talking to even without all this. But you can't leave tonight. Lucy narrows her eyes. Sencho, the minks are in danger as long as we're here. The samurai shouldn't be here at all. Frankie looks tired. We can't wait here for you to bring Cook Bro back. The crew needs to leave within the week. Less even. And we don't have a plan for Wano yet. I understand why you're mad. We need to back up Cook Bro. But we need you here for at least a little longer. Frankie stares her right in the eye, his voice serious and low. Lucy feels her resolve cracking, even as her anger rages. There are decisions we can't make without you, Lucy, Robin reminds her. We need you here. I am sure Sanji-san will hold his own until we arrive to retrieve him, Lucy-san. Lucy blinks at Brooke, slow and uncomprehending. We? Brooke shifts, like he does when he's uncertain, like he's afraid of overstepping boundaries. I would like to go with you, if I could. I feel responsible for not helping him resist Big Mom's crew when they came for him. A heart is a strange thing. A heart racked with anger and hurt in one moment can expand with affection the next. And it can be a painful sort of beating as a heart adjusts to holding both things at once, the pain and the love. And Lucy will never, she hopes, get truly used dead. Lucy scrubs her eyes with the heel of her palm before new tears can overflow, and gives Brooke a small, proud smile with lips pressed together hard, and nods. His long frame relaxes, and his bony hands curl over the neck of his guitar with grace, not anxiety. I'll wait, she agrees quietly. She looks at Frankie, who gives her a broad smile. And Lucy loves him, she does, but it makes her feel like a terrible captain. She worried them. She shouldn't do that. She wouldn't have, under any other circumstances, because she would have gone to Zoro or he would have found her and held her until she could pull herself together, make good decisions. If she were upset about any other person, any other issue, then these three would not have had to talk her down from a literal cliff. She wouldn't have needed to be reminded she still had duties to the crew on Zo before she could go herring off. But Zoro tried to die for her, and she's not sure how she's gonna forgive him for that. Lucy, have you talked to our swordsman? Robin asks this delicately, with a carefully neutral expression. Lucy hates the hesitance she sees there, and only responds by shaking her head to the negative. If she speaks, she's afraid her anger will further concern the archaeologist. Frankie whistles, and looks a little disappointed in her. Lucy hates it and looks away, not wanting to be scolded like a child. Well, Frankie says slowly, I guess we know where our next stop is. Lucy frowns and starts to look back up at him to ask what do you mean? But then a giant mechanical hand catches her by the back of her jacket and something hard closes around first one wrist and then the other before he tosses her unceremoniously over his large, round shoulders. It takes her a second to realize the cuffs around her wrist are sea stone. The same ones Law had on Dressrosa. She vaguely remembers Zoro handing them to Frankie back in that shack. Lucy squawks in protest and looks to Robin and Brooke for help even as she pounds on Frankie's back with both locked fists. Though not hard. She knows his back's his soft spot. Upgrades or no, this is undoubtedly why he's carrying her this way. Oi! Frankie! Put me down. No can do, Sencho, Frankie sings. So cheerfully Lucy struggles and kicks him on reflex. Because the sea stone cuffs around her wrists might prevent her from using her fruit. But she's still strong. You're probably tired from running all over this kingdom. Gotta let you rest while I take you to Sword Bro. Lucy stills for half a second, and then stares at her cyborg's ears in horror. Frankie. No need to thank me, Aneki. This is just what bros do. Lucy looks at Robin and Brooke for help, trying to communicate even a fraction of her desperation to not have this conversation to her crew, to beg for an intervention. Robin is smiling. Genuinely, which is good to see. It would be heartwarming if it wasn't at Lucy's expense. Brooke, maybe predictably, just laughs. Yo ho 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 ho. I will prepare for our journey, Captain. Frankie. Let me go. Sword Bro is this way, right? And Lucy really has no idea where Zoro is, but Frankie swaggers toward the city gate regardless. Lucy kicks him again. Robin waves to her and Brooke just laughs again, skeletal fingers patterning out a riff on the neck of his guitar. Lucy really hates this goddamn day. Zoro is following his katana. Really, he is. But it's been almost 2 hours now and he hasn't seen hide nor hair of Lucy. No flash of red in the brush or the trees. You're just leading me in circles, aren't you? Zoro accuses. Kitetsu wails in his head hard enough to send him to his knees, equally accusatory. Zoro stumbles on his next step and growls. He debates giving up on the stupid game of hot and cold he's playing with the sword, but, well, it's not like he has a better idea at the moment. Zoro swears and hacks down a vine to his left just out of spite. Frankie. Yes, Aneki. Put me down. I agree the forest is lovely this evening. Frankie. Yes, Aneki. Put me down. Wow, look at the stars, Aneki. Aren't they pretty tonight? Lucy cranes her neck around and squints. Pale, opaque clouds cover the moon and the gaps of sky visible between the gray-green tree boughs. This is mutiny. She rattles the sea stone cuffs for emphasis. They're lined on the inside to prevent the metal from burning and blistering the user's skin, but they're still draining, energy-wise. Is it? Frankie asks mildly, and it's an honest question. He'll let her down and unlocks the cuffs if she makes it in order. Lucy seriously considers it for a second, staring at the squishy trail Frankie leaves behind as he treks through the woods. She can't make it in order, damn it. Frankie's just trying to help her. The fact that his help involves kidnapping is just proof that he's a straw hat through and through. I don't want to talk to Zoro right now, she growls. Frankie's gait doesn't stop its steady progress, but she does hear a hum deep in his chest. I gathered as much, he says cheerfully. And because he's a member of Lucy's crew he has exactly zero shame about abducting her. So put me down. Frankie huffs a laugh, even when Lucy lands a proper kick to his ribs, but otherwise doesn't reply. The thing is, they both know Lucy isn't trapped here. If she didn't want to let Frankie carry her through the forest, there wouldn't be anything Frankie could do to stop her, cuffs or no. She wants him to let her down. She doesn't want to talk to Zoro, and yet she's still allowing Frankie to drag her along. It's because she's tired, maybe, and overwrought. Or because she just doesn't know what to do. Now, if she's not going after Sanji this instant. She will eventually though, and she's going to beat some self-worth into her boys' heads if she needs a 9-iron to do it. Against her will, angry tears well in her eyes. She scrubs at them with the heel of her palm, smearing dirt and sappy tree bark across her cheek. Lucy curses quietly. Because the more she cries the more she actually does want to see Zoro, but she can't right now because... I don't know what to say, Lucy whispers, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Frankie hums, low enough that it makes the shoulder she's slung over vibrate. Maybe he does. Lucy scrunches her nose and thinks about that Oro's dumb too, she disagrees. Frankie laughs, and Lucy's lips twitch into an approximation of a watery smile, if only for a moment. I've never been mad at him like this before, Lucy confesses. And the more I think of it the madder I get. Because every time she lets her mind drift she sees gore splashed over the earth and rocks and Zoro's bandana. And she remembers the burning scent of antiseptic and she feels Zoro's scars under her fingertips and all she can think is how dare he, how dare he, how dare he. Conqueror's hockey coils in her spine, but Lucy unwinds it between one breath and the next, her control less frayed than it has been all night. Frankie is a soothing presence, and his silence is sympathetic. Have you ever dated anyone, Frankie? Oi. You're talking to a paragon of masculinity here. Lucy giggles, just a little, then sobers. How would you feel if they did what Zoro did? Frankie makes a contemplative sound in the back of his throat, and then shakes his head in answer. Probably about like you do. Mad and guilty as hell. Lucy flinches. Black, sticky guilt sits leaden and restless in the pit of her stomach, a physical, desperate ache she doesn't know how to resolve. But I try to understand. Put myself in their shoes. Frankie squeezes her ankle. You're usually good at that, Aneki. Lucy bites the inside of her lip. There are a lot of reasons why she can't just understand. Most of them have to do with the scars on her chest and the twisted tissue strewn all across Zoro's belly that should have been hers. But most importantly, she's the captain. And she failed her first mate in so many ways. Hot, angry tears burn down her cheeks and Lucy huffs in frustration even as she scrubs them away. It's harder to do than it should be because of the thick cuffs. I'm the captain, Frankie, she reminds him. She can't see much, hanging upside down and staring at Frankie's back like this, but it seems like the forest might be getting lighter as dawn approaches. Sencho, Frankie says seriously. Sometimes a man, anyone really, has to protect the things he loves. Or he can't live with himself after. And Lucy knows that. She does. So why does it seem like she's being protected all the time, rather than doing the protecting? I don't want anyone to protect me, she whispers, knowing Frankie can hear her anyway. Not like that. And Frankie sighs. Yeah, well. I suspect there's only one person who could. There's an image of Zoro that Lucy can't stop seeing. He's sweating profusely, gasping for every breath as he struggles under his weights with blood soaking through his bandages. Anger in his eyes, and it's not Frankie's fault but that doesn't make it any easier to swallow the scream of frustration lodged in her throat. Lucy's the one who did that. Lucy's the one who set him back from his goals, who made him weaker when Sabaody. Roronoa Zoro. Still alive, I see. Thanks to your mercy. Lucy closes her eyes against her grief. It was a line she always found odd, but she never had the context for it. She only barely heard it, only remembers it from branding it into her memory over years of sleepless nights on Ruskina, picturing the frame of Zoro's shoulders and the line of his back in the moment he was ripped from her. Kuma never planned to leave him alive. Zoro merely beat the odds, betting everything on the slim possibility that the warlord wouldn't come for her head after. Is this what Smokey and Jimbei meant? She wonders aloud, when they said I shouldn't be with Zoro? Frankie actually does stop walking at that, and in a deliberate fashion, plucks her off his shoulder by the collar of her jacket and holds her up like she's a stray kitten. The look on his face is one of concern and an almost grave seriousness. Lucy, he starts, and her name sounds odd in Frankie's mouth. You gonna break up with Sword Bro? Lucy flinches like she's been slapped, and every vein in her body fills with revulsion and denial. Breaking up with Zoro would be like cutting off a part of her heart and still expecting it to beat. It would be like tearing her hat in two and ripping up part of her dream. Lucy can't even imagine what that would be like, because every part of her belongs to him, and everything she feels for him is equal parts greedy and intimate. Being just friends with Zoro. She doesn't know how to do it, because she's loved him since she's known him, but. If it keeps him alive, Lucy grits out, ignoring the physical ache in her gut. She ignores the fresh tears on her face, this time cold with the terror this whole idea fills her with. She and Zoro being anything less than what they are fills her with sickening panic. She hates the idea, hates the thought of being able to see Zoro every day and not being able to touch him, or give him a secret smile that he returns, or fall asleep on him, or any of the thousands of tiny things that color their relationship. She doesn't know how she'll get through a single minute of it. The thought of it is like standing at the edge of an abyss, one with sharp rocks on the bottom to pierce and cut and hurt, forever and ever. Zoro dead, for her sake? There's nothing. No future. Just a void, just the end of Monkey D. Lucy as she knows herself, and the end of any dream she might have had of being Pirate King. Whatever Frankie sees on her face makes him soften in sympathy, and he throws her over his shoulder again, a little gentler than before. Love comes in a lot of forms, Lucy. And pushing away our feelings doesn't make them disappear. He starts off down the trail again. You and Sword Bro weren't together when this happened, yeah? Lucy grimaces, but stubborns herself against the point. Maybe he can move on. She certainly wouldn't. Frankie actually laughs loud enough to startle a bird they had already passed. Ha! That'll be the day, he cries. His shoulders are still shaking like she's just told him the funniest joke he's ever heard. Sword Bro will get over you around the time he throws his swords in the ocean, swears off alcohol forever, and asks Cook Bro to teach him how to make artisanal bread. Lucy pouts at Frankie's back, even as the corners of her mouth turn up at the thought. Zoro in an apron and yelling at bread is actually a pretty cute mental image. She immediately feels terrible about it, though, because then she thinks of Zoro in bandages, just after Thriller Bark, and how he couldn't even walk up the 2 stairs to get out of the infirmary, that first day he woke up. For what it's worth, Aneki, Frankie adds gently, I think it'd be silly to push away someone you love, in the hopes that they stop loving you. Lucy bites her lip to keep the sharp intake of breath quiet. She doesn't even bother to try and stop the tears. As for whatever those 2 said, I doubt this is what they meant, Frankie continues after a moment. They were speaking of crews that would put their dreams before each other. Lucy sniffs quietly, trying not to tip Frankie off even though he almost certainly knows. Seen a lot of those on Water 7? Frankie, thankfully, doesn't point out her tears. A fair few, sure, he says lightly, and there's a smile in his voice when he adds, my crew's different though. My captain wouldn't let it be any other way. Lucy's smile is a little firmer this time, warmth and affection so raw it almost hurts curling around the bleeding in her heart, even through her tears. But her shipwright isn't done yet. I know how it feels to have someone die for you. I know how I'd feel if someone tried to do it again. Frankie squeezes her ankle in reassurance. I know you're scared. I know how hard it is to not be scared. But Aneki, you're the bravest and strongest person I've ever met. Sword Bro's got what it takes to be the person you need him to be. And you know that I think. Lucy squeezes her eyes shut, and as payback, wipes a little of her snot on Frankie's shirt. It's hard, she admits, because it is. It's hard to trust that her crew will be okay without her, which is why she stretches her hockey to its limit on every island except Triax so viciously now if they're seriously threatened. Zoro she trusts to win, because he promised. She trusts him because he's strong, because he's always been strong. And she believes, or used to, that if nothing else, he would live because he's too damn stubborn to die before achieving his dream. But she doesn't know how she's going to trust Zoro not to harm himself for her sake after this. Of course it's hard, Frankie agrees loudly. But love is a risk. No matter how you express it, to love someone is to live with part of your heart outside your body. We're pirates, Aneki. We're used to a little risk. And Lucy goes limp with defeat because he's right, of course he is. Sometimes she forgets that Frankie is older than her, more experienced. That he had a whole life prior to piracy. That he was a leader of a bunch of goofy thugs before he became her shipwright. It's funny how that wisdom peeks out at times, brash and silly as he is. Lucy needs to be a captain worthy of someone like Frankie. In the distance, Lucy can hear branches breaking and a low, steady stream of curses. Lucy's eyes widen and her stomach bottoms out. She'd recognize that voice anywhere. She's not ready. Frankie plucks her off his shoulder and gives her a look. She's not ready, but she needs to be, because she needs to be the captain her crew deserves. None of you are allowed to die for me, she orders, firming her gaze. Captain's orders. No one dies for me. She can't make them promise not to die at all, because they're pirates and they're human or at least close to it, and she told them all when they joined they were taking their lives in their hands, that living as a pirate was to risk everything at once. But if a single one of them does this again, Lucy won't be held responsible for her actions. Frankie looks her up and down, and then reaches out to unlock the cuffs. They fall off her wrists and into his hands, and Zoro's cursing is getting louder as she rubs her wrists and relishes the strength returning to her arms. Sencho. But remember, and here Frankie pokes her in the forehead, right between the eyes, a smile on his face. My dream can't be accomplished without you. And Lucy smiles back, even if she's sure it looks terrible and pained, because she remembers, of course she remembers. I have a good ship, Lucy tells him, grinning. I won't abandon it. Frankie stares at her from behind his sunglasses, his face slacked with just a hint of surprise, and grins. Super. He nods toward Zoro's much louder cursing, and it's only a thick copse of trees that protects them from his sight. Don't run off now. Lucy sighs, but nods. Frankie turns back the way he came, his pompadour disappearing behind the trees within a stride or two. There is a brief half a second where Lucy considers running off anyway. The shadows are too long, or she's too angry, or maybe Zoro doesn't want to talk to her either right now. Maybe he's just blowing off steam. There are 1,000 manifold reasons she could give, and maybe some of them might even be true, but every single one of them would be a lie. Lucy doesn't know if she's ready to talk to Zoro about this, or if it wouldn't be better to wait until morning. But if she runs away now, it'll be because she's scared, and Lucy is a lot of things, but she's never been a coward. The clouds have separated and moved on, and between them a waning moon is visible, bearing down on Lucy like an eye frozen mid-blink. The palm of her right hand tingles, and Lucy runs her thumb over the scar there. A good captain doesn't run away. A good girlfriend doesn't let her partner stumble through the woods alone. Zoro, she calls, because her idiot is going to wander off if she doesn't. Zoro, that's you, right? The cursing stops, the luminary eye blinks behind a cloud, and beneath Lucy's feet the elephant trembles hard enough to rattle her skull. Lucy looks up, fists clenched in righteous anger and heart bleeding and tender, and finds the gray eye of her swordsman blown wide and thinks love is a risk. Of course it is. We pirates are made of dreams to risk, and hearts to lose. Zoro's first thought is, holy crap, she looks like shit. Her face is splotchy from crying, cheeks still wet with tears, and there's dirt smudged under her eyes from the grass stains on her palms. The rest of her looks undamaged, but there's a fragility in her frame that makes Zoro want to pick her up and run and hide her between his ribs until that shattering quality is gone. His second thought is, holy crap, she's going to kill me. Crying or not, vulnerable or not, there's a fire in Lucy's eyes that she normally reserves for assholes she plans to beat up and spit out like a toothpick. She looks like she'd like to deck him. Observation hockey or no, in the back of his head he feels Lucy's conquerors boiling the air around them, and he can feel the effort it takes her to avoid blowing half of Zo into the ocean. Guilt pricks at him for both of these things, her hurt and her anger. Zoro sheaths kitetsu and drinks her in, and doesn't let himself feel the shame at the note of betrayal in the twist of her mouth. When she doesn't move after a minute, he takes a step toward her. Her eyes flash with renewed anger, and Zoro takes another. Lucy doesn't move. Instead she looks him straight in the eye, face hard as the sky is blue, and says, I should kick you off my crew. Zoro nods, because he wouldn't put it beyond Lucy to do something like that if she thought he was putting her ahead of his own dreams. And besides, he thinks as he takes another, you'd be within your rights to. Lucy eyes him warily as he draws closer. He takes another step, and now she's only a stride or two away. Did you do it because I'm your captain? Or, she swallows thickly, like she's afraid of the answer. It occurs to Zoro that he has an incredible power to hurt Lucy, if he ever wanted to hate himself for the rest of his life. Both. Another step, and now she's within arm's reach. She's staring at his haramaki, where the scars from Thriller bark rest beneath it. I did it because I couldn't do anything else. Lucy's gaze snaps up to his, and she has to look up properly now because he's standing right before her. Zoro's never seen her look so unbelievably livid at any member of her crew before, let alone him. Zoro reaches out and clasps her shoulders in his palms. She's tiny, his captain, and as athletic and strong as she is, she's still dwarfed by him. She stiffens at the contact, and shakes her head like there's a refusal on her lips, but Zoro has always been a creature of instinct most of all, and so even though she makes a half-hearted attempt to back away, he pulls her forward and into him so that she's cradled against his chest. She stiffens, thrashes half-heartedly, and Zoro just takes a half-step closer, invading her space a little to bring her into his own. I'm so mad at you right now, Lucy whimpers, and her voice breaks a little. She throws a weak punch to his ribs, and Zoro knows he's getting through to her because she didn't just lay him out flat. I know. He would be just as mad in her shoes. You had no right. She throws another weak punch. It's not fair that something that happened so long ago, something he has no regrets about, still has the ability to torment her years later. I did what I had to. Lucy shudders in his grip, and her fists find his shirt. She pulls at the fabric so hard he thinks it will tear under her hands. She's still stiff, still resisting, and Zoro begins to rock her gently, with one hand patting her back. Why? And here her voice is thready, and soft enough to break his heart. Why does it seem like I'm always taking from you? Zoro glances down at her in surprise. Her messily shorn locks are wild and tangled, and anything remotely resembling order is woefully disregarded as her knotted hair flies in every which direction. But this next part is hard, and it's hard to keep his voice light like he normally would. Because you're greedy, he tells her easily, it's one of the best things about you. His greedy captain, always taking people's hearts against their will. His greedy girlfriend, who took everything he was and gave it back to him tenfold. There's a wet spot on his shirt now, and Zoro knows her tears have started fresh. Her shoulders barely hitch, and she stays silent. He hates it that she cries like this, small and wounded and covering her vulnerable bits. That this part of Lucy doesn't scream her feelings and thoughts for all the world to see, because that means they hurt. That means she's afraid of someone hurting her with them. One day Zoro's going to find the person who taught her not to cry out loud and he's going to kill them, he swears it. Lucy's fists tap his back in her weakest punch yet, right over his kidneys even as she's refused to let go of his shirt, and Zoro wishes he knew of another way to soothe her. I'm so mad at you, she whispers again. Why can't I stop being mad at you? Because she's scared. Because she doesn't know how to keep what happened to Ace from happening to him. Because Lucy hates when people leave, and she has no greater fear than losing everyone she cares about. No greater fear than being alone. Dying for her is the worst way Zoro could hurt her. On some level he's known this almost since the beginning. It's why he kept Kuma and Thriller Bark a secret in the first place. Because it feels like I didn't believe in you, he says instead. I did though. That's why I did it. Lucy shakes her head in denial, and she's frantic enough with it that she looks up at him, tears and all to order. I don't want you to, ever again. Zoro frowns and brushes her bangs back. The point of Lucy's chin digs into his ribs, and she wants him to promise right now, he can feel it. And Zoro wishes he could give her that, wishes he could put her at ease, but it would be a lie, and the only lie he's ever told her has come unraveled tonight. He's not going to heal it by offering her another one. I don't regret it. Lucy's expression fractures to a snarl, and she pulls away from him hard. But Zoro knows Lucy, knows that she needs the comfort of physical touch like she needs air to breathe, and so he changes his loose grip on her to a strong one, both arms wrapped around her waist to bring her back to him. He pulls her off her feet, her back pressed to his chest even as she bicycle kicks the air, and she thrashes enough that he finds himself flat on his ass with his protesting girlfriend twisting and snarling between his legs. Zoro just holds on, his forehead on her shoulder and grip tight, arms locked around her body, and waits for her to calm down. It takes a while. She pleads with him more than once to let her go with a broken key in her voice that makes self-loathing curdle in his gut. But he holds on anyway, because he knows his girlfriend, and he knows how angry she is, and he knows they'll only be drawing this out if he does as she asks. They both know she could free herself with ease. He left her hands free and all she does with them is grip his wrists so hard they're sure to bruise tomorrow, like she's afraid to let go. When she finally calms, she's limp against him, her head leaning back against his shoulder and her hands fisted in her lap. Zoro lets out a sigh, relieved. What would you have done in my place? He asks her, not expecting an answer. He just needs her to remember the why, because it's not like she doesn't know it already. Lucy lets out a shuddery exhale, and Zoro can feel the trembling of her lungs against his own. He tries to lead by example, calm her breathing with deep breaths of his own. That's why I can't regret it, because you'd have done the same for me without a second's thought. Lucy's whole body is trembling now, and Zoro just holds her tighter, trying to keep a human storm from flying apart with just his fortitude. But she doesn't calm, doesn't stop, and the shaking only seems to get worse, and when Zoro notices her shoulders caving in around the scar on her chest he starts to speak. He tells Lucy of the things she's given him, and how absurd it is to think he's never received anything from her. He lists out Ito earned his loyalty and love, a home, a family, the means to pursue his dream, her own heart. And he tells her of the ways he's gotten stronger since Thriller Bark, How he took down that soprano bastard on Dressrosa without breaking a sweat, and hey, the new world's not been so challenging after all, not yet. Most importantly of all, he tells her, I did it because I can't be world's greatest without you, Lucy. It takes a long time, and Zoro's not used to talking like this. Normally it's Lucy who speaks enough for both of them, and normally the silence between them is comfortable enough that words are unnecessary. But Lucy can't hear him right now, can't feel his voice, and so he has to try and give voice to the magnitude and the breadth of his feelings for her, because it feels like she's forgetting and needs to know. Finally though, she calms. The sky has visibly lightened by the time she does. She's limp and spent against him, and there are tears drying on her face from her latest bout of crying this evening, so Zoro finishes with "It's like I told you, I didn't lose," and falls quiet. Lucy gives him a quiet sigh, and Zoro puts his chin on her shoulder, trying to see the expression on her face. Pinched, like she could start crying again. Lined with exhaustion. Zoro leans back against the elephant hide and drags her with him. This time, Lucy follows easily enough, her energy spent, and she curls tightly against his chest in a protective ball. Zoro rubs her back, encouraging her to relax. She's quiet for a moment, and Zoro thinks she's just going to pass out with her fists clenched, but then she speaks again, and her voice is hoarse and rough with her tears. I can't be Pirate King without you, Zoro. And Zoro closes his eyes and sighs. He aims a half smile at the lightening sky because this he can give her. Alright. Lucy breathes out slowly, pacified at least for now. She uncoils from her stressed, defensive ball and instead sprawls against him in her usual fashion, limbs akimbo and one hand resting over his heart. She drops from consciousness quickly, energy spent. Zoro brushes the hair back from her face and rubs away the furrow between her eyebrows with his thumb. He draws circles over her back to ease the frown she sports, and finally, when he's satisfied she won't wake up screaming, he drifts off himself, right there in the middle of the jungles of Zo. The light changes, and Lucy opens her eyes. The fretful doze she's been trying to fall into flutters away, and she sits up unthinkingly, grasping at her bearings. Zoro doesn't wake, thankfully. His right hand is tangled in the knots of her skirt, curled around her hip. It's protective and sweet, and it makes Lucy melt a little even as part of her wants to burn shit. Lucy looks away from Zoro, frowning into the trees. The shadows are forming with the coming morning, and it suits Lucy's mood. She feels better after sleeping and bawling her eyes out. Calmer, more stable. Her scar doesn't ache so bad, and the terror that gripped her heart in a vice is gone, wiped away. Lucy wants that to be enough. It's not. Lucy is still angry, is the thing. Mostly at herself. She feels it like a hot iron rod in her gut, heavy and immovable. She's moved past the weakness that led her crew to the choices Zoro and Sanji were faced with a long time ago. There's nothing she can do about it now but make sure it never happens again. Her self-directed anger is accompanied by the dregs of her fury at Zoro and Sanji. That's more of a problem. It's futile anger. She wouldn't love them the way she does if they were the types to stand by when someone they love is hurt. And deep in her bones, even with the memories of Thriller Bark and Marineford and all the other times Lucy has seen herself or her loved ones hurt, Lucy still can't picture a loss so complete that Zoro or Sanji or anyone she loves would be made to lay down their lives like that. And even if she did, she knows how strong they all are. She trusts that even the weakest of her friends would find a way to survive. She does. Lucy lets out a slow breath and looks to the east, where the sun makes to escape the sea. The sky is a riot of color. The black-blue ocean turns burnished gold beneath the escaping rays, but the golden orb of sun has not yet broken free of the sunken horizon, and the sky above Lucy's head remains black and violet. Lucy looks down at her swordsman, spread out on the elephant skin like a starfish, snoring lightly. He looks handsome in the early light, his skin deepening with warm tones and his earrings glinting gold. The expression on his face is relaxed and calm, but there's a telltale furrow in his eyebrows that makes Lucy think his sleep is less restful than it seems. Lucy tangles her fingers in the hand that still rests on her hip and feels her heart break, just a bit. Just enough to grow bigger. If love is a risk, she's glad her heart chose Zoro. Lucy can trust him with it. She's never doubted otherwise, so she can forgive him for being stupid, for loving her more than she wants him to, for being loyal in a way that scares her sometimes. The hand on her hip squeezes lightly, unconscious and without intent. Lucy smiles down at Zoro, her eyes drawn to the shadows cast by his lips, and lets the warmth of the newly risen sun leach the poison from her heart, self-directed anger easing as she makes an old vow again. Lucy promised to never give up. She's not going to break that vow here, when all she has to conquer is her fear, and there's an infinity of possibility and future to gain. When Zoro wakes, the first rays of morning sunlight have turned the backs of the leaves black. Zoro knows instantly from the fogginess in his head and the stiffness of his limbs that he's only been napping for an hour or two. This is the first thing he notices. The second thing he notices is small hands shoving their way under his haramaki, and his t-shirt riding up. When he blinks his eye into focus, he is unsurprised to find his girlfriend crouched beside him, tongue poking between her teeth as she tries to peel back his haramaki. One look at her and he can tell she's calmer now than she was before. The fragility in her expression is gone, and the steadiness of her frame has returned. She looks like herself again, if not for the missing hat and a slight puffiness to her eyes. It warms him enough that his lips twitch up in a smile and he cracks, "Shouldn't you at least buy me a drink first?" Lucy starts in an abortive movement, then goes a little red, retracting her hands from his belly. "I wasn't, Zoro, look at the sunrise." And sue him, Lucy being flustered is a rare sight and the expression on her face is cute. Zoro pushes himself up to his elbows to look at the sunrise. And then he blinks once, twice, 3 times, because wow. 50 paces down the path they stopped on, the forest opens up and slopes down Zoe's ribs. From where he and Lucy had their impromptu nap, it's like looking down the slope of a mountain whose roots are buried beneath the ocean, because beyond the forest the sea stretches out into infinity, painted a glittering gold and white as the sun climbs above the horizon. The sky itself a riot of tangerine and carmine and violet. The rays turn the trees to jade and lengthen and blacken shadows, and it's breathtaking. Zoro has seen a lot of beautiful sunrises out on the sea. They never stop being beautiful, but he's grown used to them to some degree. This is different. This is a sunrise that seems to breathe, and pulse with its own heartbeat. Lucy smiles at whatever expression he's making, and pushes something against his back. Zoro sits up and leans against the log she's retrieved, and Lucy curls under his arm, her cheek on his shoulder and her right hand over his chest. Lucy's scent cuts through the mossy aroma of faint decay that clings to the elephant's hide. She's all sea and sunlight and star anise, and the familiarity is nice as they watch the strange sunrise together in silence. Lucy, though, has never been one for quiet or stillness, and soon enough her hand his ribs and further down. Her questing fingers stop beneath his haramaki, even as she pulls aside his t-shirt, and then he gets it. She's looking for the shit that got mauled by Kuma's pain cushion on Thriller Bark. Lucy's fingers go over the same spot, over and over. The worst of the gnarled scarring, where the skin is raised in a jagged cross. Lucy's seen it enough that she would know what the scars look like. He wonders what it is she's looking for now. Zoro wishes for the millionth time since coming to Zoe, that he could use Haki to check on her. But that's not possible. Zoe trembles in the back of his head, louder even than it was yesterday. Like the sunrise has rejuvenated the ancient elephant too. So Zoro keeps his silence and settles for running his fingers through the knots in Lucy's hair, detangling gently as he goes. At this Lucy just turns her nose into his shoulder and lets out a slow breath. Zoro watches carefully, but she doesn't shake or stiffen, and there's no wetness on her face. Everything about her speaks of calm and stability, and Zoro lets himself relax in the face of it. At least, he does until she says, with a voice like the dead calm of a sea before a hurricane, "I knew you were lying when you woke up." Zoro blinks at that, and recalls faintly that he didn't think he sold his lie particularly well back then. "You didn't say anything. You didn't lose. You were awake, and I trusted you." She shrugs one shoulder, like it's not a big deal that he lied, that she knew all this time that he lied and still trusted him with it anyway, and shifts against him to look up at his face properly. "Robin and Sanji knew, I think, and since no one was saying anything I figured it wasn't bad." Zoro feels the corner of his mouth twitch, and he lets out a slow breath. "You're too good at reading people," he complains, his voice too rich with affection for the accusation to land. She frowns though, eyebrows pinched. "I didn't know it was about me though." She sounds a little hurt. Zoro doesn't know what to tell her. He didn't say anything her to protect her. The others did the same. He didn't do it for glory or to make a statement or whatever. Knowing about it would only hurt her, make her feel guilty when it was Zoro's weakness that led him to getting his shit kicked out of him. And he can't say sorry because he's not. He can't even apologize for not telling her because he'd do the same thing all over again given the option. Lucy seems to realize he won't be apologizing for this and shakes her head once. Just don't lie to me again. Not about something important. Lucy's fingers still trace the scars on his belly, and her unspoken point is clear. These are important. Zoro makes an agreeing noise in the back of his throat. Lucy's fingers start edging lower, tracing muscle rather than scar tissue, and something in Zoro's hindbrain perks up. Lucy is looking at him with eyes deep and black, and his heart rate spikes in anticipation. You didn't lose, she hums lowly, too saturated to be a whisper. There's pride in her voice. Admiration. It makes something like satisfaction curl up Zoro's spine, makes something deep and masculine in his gut preen even over a fight years old and over. Damn straight, he echoes, and just like that, a smile steals over her lips, tugging on her cheeks. It makes his stomach clench. Lucy, he warns, just in case she doesn't want what he does right this moment, Lucy. Lucy's fingers quest lower still, and Zoro shuts up as his brain short-circuits. She kisses him, or maybe he kisses her. He's not sure. All he can recall later is the sickly sweet scent of Zo's forest disappearing behind the familiar aroma of saltwater and sunlight and star anise, and the way she sighs his name. For the first time, Lucy thinks she understands why Zoro wanted them to wait before sleeping together. Up until now, their couplings have been marked by affection, by passion, by pleasure, by giddy, bubbling joy, by mischief and warm familiarity. Every time she remembers being with Zoro, she will think of the things she first associated with it: love, union, and a ferocious appetite for more of him, as much of himself as he would give her. Zoro's never refused her anything she really wants. This time is different. The affection, the passion, the pleasure, it's still there. But it's joined by something like an apology or reconciliation. Zoro's calloused hands are gentle and affectionate where he might have gripped her heart another night. And Lucy finds herself pressing her ardor and appreciation into his skin with her lips instead of marking it with her teeth. There's more hesitance, more repeated assurances as they move together, into each other. It's partially the absence of hockey, which is a little like trying to navigate with a blindfold on. But Lucy thinks they'd be cautious anyways, given the aches they're easing at the moment. This time there's an uncertainty over their heads they've never had before, a heaviness too. Everything has more meaning and weight than simply chasing pleasure or expressing love, and everything is honest and raw. They don't try anything they haven't done before, and by unspoken agreement they take it slow and reassuring. It's exactly what they need today, after a night where both of them felt shaken and disturbed. It's overwhelming in the moment, makes 1,000 emotions rise up in Lucy's chest only to be overruled by affection and love so powerful she can feel it in every particle of her body. It makes Lucy feel tethered and satisfied, confident that they've recovered their equilibrium. It also makes her grateful that Zoro made them wait until they were both calm and happy and not trying to escape their fears before sleeping together for the first time. Her relationship with Zoro is a lot of things, and most all of them are good and easy and freeing. She's glad that this part, too, is something she automatically associates with nothing but pleasure, not a means of outrunning fear. When both of them are satiated, Lucy feels loose-limbed and warm down to her fingertips. She's found a comfortable position pressed against Zoro's torso, and he tucks her jacket and his shirt over her back to keep her warm. It makes her smile dopily at him, her toes curling against his hips. Zoro either doesn't notice her expression or has gotten way better at hiding that he's flustered. Once he's satisfied with her impromptu blanket, he takes her right palm in his left and kisses the center of it, right across the scar his sword left. Lucy blinks at the gesture, and then smiles into his sternum as he places their joined hands on his chest, right over his heart. She's never been sure if he knows the story of that scar or not. Lucy can't remember telling him, but Zoro says his katanas sing to him, in a way. Like speaking with a jumble of notes, he said once, but then he got frustrated with trying to explain, growling "I'm not a fucking poet," or whatever you call Usopp. She's not sure if Kitetsu is capable of telling that story, or even if it would, being Zoro's problem child. But sometimes she's sure Zoro knows the story there, because he treats her hands and especially that scar with something close to reverence. Zoro squeezes her hand, his thumb brushing the scar. Affection bursts in her chest, completely overwhelming. "Kitetsu gave me that," she blurts, tapping the sword in question with her foot. He freezes in surprise, back on thriller bark. Zoro manages to croak a strangled, "What?" And when Lucy glances at his face, she's surprised to see he looks somewhere between floored and murderous. Lucy pouts at him and closes her hand around his thumb. "You were sleeping, and I wanted to clean them for you," she explains. "I accidentally told Kitetsu I love you when I was working on it. That's how I figured it out. Then my hand slipped." "Your hand slipped," Zoro repeats, his voice flat. Lucy eyes him, because she can't figure out where the anger is coming from. "I should throw the damn katana in the ocean." Lucy digs HNUM, just to get his attention. "I like this scar," she tells him petulantly. "It reminds me of you." Zoro looks down at her at that, and then lets out a slow breath as his face flushes. "Well, it would explain a few things," he grumbles finally. He sends a death glare to Kitetsu, the hand curled around Lucy's squeezing once before relaxing. "Like what?" Zoro looks at her, frowning, and then haltingly explains how he tracked her down the night before. Lucy feels her eyes go wide and her jaw drops. "Really?" "Kitetsu's a cursed blade. When it cut you, it imbued some of its curse in your hand." He shakes his head, his brow furrowed. "It's connected to the blade still. Does your right hand ever feel weird? What about when you punch someone?" Lucy frowns and shakes her head to the negative, not really understanding what the big deal is. "So what if Kitetsu is cursed? Isn't it a good thing he could find her whenever?" "The curse on this katana is supposed to make the wielder die in battle." Lucy frowns. "I tested myself against the curse before I bought it, but you've never." Lucy thinks about that for a second, and then sits up, pulling Zoro's t-shirt on to keep out the cold. "Okay." Zoro pushes himself to his elbows, scowling mightily. "Okay?" Lucy stands up, and plucks Kitetsu off the ground. "Okay, let's test it." "What?" Zoro scrambles to his feet, stark naked, and Lucy eyes him appreciatively. "Lucy, no, you can't." "I can't." Zoro swallows whatever it was he was going to say, looking like he'd very much like to figure out a way to reassert control over the situation. Adorable. Lucy pulls the scabbard off the katana, careful to do it the way Zoro does, with the sharp edge pointed to the bluing sky. The wicked Hammond glints at her menacingly, warningly. Lucy's never been good at heeding warnings. She takes the hilt in her left hand, and looks into Zoro's eye. He looks skeptical, stressed even. His fists are clenched at his sides, and his jaw jumps. There are a lot of muscles and tendons in a palm. Things that let fingers stretch and fists close. Instinctively, she knows if Kitetsu severs them that not even Chopper or Torao could put her hand back together properly. She smiles at Zoro, wide and confident, and runs her palm down the length of Kitetsu's raw edge. She pulls her hand away, clean of blood, and shows Zoro the scar from all that time ago. His eyes widen, and he takes her hand in both of his to inspect it. When he finds no further injury, he looks at the katana skeptically, like he's sure there must be some trick he can't see here. "Maybe a curse isn't a curse for everyone," Lucy tells him, smiling. "Maybe it just takes a good person to tame it." She sees Zoro's Adam's apple move, but doesn't look away from her palm. He simply says, low and gravelly, "Put the katana down, Lucy." His voice is raw in a way she's not sure how to interpret, and she wonders if she crossed a line somehow. She does as he asks, setting Kitetsu in its scabbard against Wado and Shisui. The moment she straightens, Zoro is on her, his hands cradling her face and his lips rough against hers as he backs her step by demanding step into a nearby tree, his hips pinning hers. Lucy kisses back, trying to return the fervor even if she doesn't know what's caused the desperation. He smells like blood, steel, and sake, and even without haki, as she grasps thick green hair between her fingers, all she feels from him is a frantic, wild sort of need she can't help but respond to in earnest. When they're both panting and out of breath, Zoro pulls back, pressing his forehead to hers. Zoro's earrings swing forward down his cheek, and Lucy's knees feel weak. "You'll always be able to find me now," she realizes aloud, selfishly giddy and her heart bursting with the thought that no, She'd really truly never be alone again because whether I'm on Ruskina, or Fishman Island, or the moon, even Yule. Zoro silences her with another searing kiss and Lucy slots her thighs over his hips, his shirt riding up on her waist and the sun warming Zoro's back under her hands. Lucy sucks a bruise into the juncture between his neck and shoulder, golden earrings tinkling in her ears with every gasp and breath and needy movement between them. As opposed to yesterday, this morning has been, in Zoro's not particularly humble opinion, a pretty good day so far. This is true because 1. His girlfriend doesn't hate him and spent the early hours of the morning proving it, repeatedly. 2. His katana may or may not be cursed but either way will now, probably, function as a very bizarre tracking system for his oft-wayward girlfriend. 3. Minks serve booze with breakfast. Sweet. When they walk into camp hand in hand, they are greeted first by Robin, who eyes Lucy's fingers clasped in his with obvious relief, and then by Nami, who scolds them both for looking like they slept in a forest and orders them to go wash up in the infirmary showers. Nami does look extremely relieved to see them both though, so that's something, and she does look a little guilty as well. It's possible she's over whatever it was that crawled up her ass and died, which would be a plus. Zoro doesn't let go of Lucy's hand until they get to the showers, where he squeezes her fingers once before releasing her, and Lucy stretches up to land a kiss just below his right ear. When she pulls back she's grinning, eyes twinkling with mischief. It makes Zoro warm in his gut, aching with satisfaction. Zoro wanders into the shower room and scrubs the smelly bits over the sink with the bit of lye on the shelf. When he's finished, he takes a look in the mirror and straightens his shirt and attempts to make it look like Lucy didn't tug it off recently. Ahem. He combs his hair back with his fingers, gives himself a once-over, sniffs his pits, and calls it good. When he walks out of the infirmary, Lucy is already at the breakfast buffet. Her hair is messily finger-combed but the laces of her bust strap are tied correctly and her skirt as neat as it gets. Her face has been scrubbed of any sign of tears, skin glowing pink, freshly scrubbed. She looks pretty, and Zoro has to look away for fear that the overwhelming affection in his chest will show on his face. Lucy doesn't notice him, entirely consumed by the smorgasbord the minks have laid out. Zoro rolls his eye but gives her up to her first love, breakfast sausage. Lucy does notice him when he passes her though, and sends him a glowing grin. Sunshine literally beaming off her teeth before she gets distracted by another rack of ribs. Zoro goes to find an empty seat next to Robin with booze in hand. Frankie gives him a pat on the shoulder as he passes by and says, "Good job," but the stink eye he gives Zoro mostly says "Don't do it again." Zoro raises his good eyebrow, wildly confused, but moves along to take his seat regardless. His katana rattle against the bench as he sits. The mink booze isn't his thing, too sweet. But Zoro drinks it anyway, because most of his headache is from the elephant trying its best to shake Zoro's teeth loose, and the rest of it is from the lingering hangover. Plus, Zoro ain't picky when it comes to booze. The captain was very distressed last night, Robin offers delicately. She's filling one of the thin, spongy flatbreads with a variety of grilled vegetables and meat. She looks much better now. Zoro looks for a straw hat on instinct, and accidentally finds Nami. She's talking with Usopp and Lucy though, so he finds her looking relaxed and happy as she downs a kebab in one gulp. Adorable. "You saw Lucy last night?" Robin gives him an evaluating glance out of the corner of her eye. Zoro meets her gaze steadily. "Frankie, Brooke, and I may have dissuaded her from swimming to Whole Cake Island last night." Zoro thinks of how shaky and distressed Lucy was the night before, and finds he's not shocked. "She's better now," he confirms awkwardly. Then he thinks of how much worse all of this would have been if she haired off to drag Sanji back by his balls last night, and adds a more heartfelt, "To hear that." Robin returns, genuine warmth in her voice. Zoro remembers that he is adamantly not the only person on this crew who loves Lucy, and raises his glass to Robin's in agreement. She returns the gesture with a small smile on her face, and rolls up her meat vegetable bread thing. It's a messy cuisine, but Robin makes eating it look elegant. "I think this might be a good time to tell you," she says lightly. "I knew about Kuma's deal as well." Zoro stops mid-drink, and looks at her evenly. "You knew," he states, nonplussed. Lucy's earlier assertions about Robin and Sanji come back to him and he lets himself be impressed once again by his girlfriend's intuition. Beside him, Robin takes another bite of her not a burrito and sips her drink. Finally, Zoro sighs. "You keep too many secrets, woman." There's no heat to his words though, and Robin huffs a quiet laugh. "I suppose I should have said something sooner, maybe." Zoro shrugs, not really caring either way. He didn't do it for glory and shit, and Robin was a person who could be trusted with secrets regardless. "Bet you were good at spying with the revolutionaries," he comments after a moment, waiting for her to explain why she brought this up. Quite." Zoro rolls his eye and gives her a sideways glance. It takes Robin a long moment to speak again. When she does, her eyes are narrowed with tension, and her expression serious. Zoro sits up straighter unconsciously, his hand finding Shisui's hilt. "I think you're right, you know," Robin says finally, and Zoro raises a questioning eyebrow. "About Kaido, and going to Wano." Zoro releases a slow breath. That. Zoro had enjoyed the privilege of forgetting about that for 3 seconds. He feels his good mood from the morning dissipate into the ether, replaced by a lukewarm dread. "Yeah." But, she interjects, "Nami's right as well." She stops eating and looks him dead in the eye. "Someone must go retrieve Sanji-kun." Zoro scowls at her, annoyed, and rips up the spongy flatbread on his plate to dip it in some berry sauce. The cook. "We all know how capable Sanji is," Robin interrupts. "But Zoro, he's going against an emperor and the Vinsmokes." The use of his first name kills the protests on his tongue. Robin doesn't use it often. "I know he'll have some kind of plan, that he fully intends to return, but he's improvising at best. Germa has an unsettling amount of resources, and Big Mom already has a grudge against Lucy. He needs help." Zoro doesn't answer, his gaze finding Lucy's form instinctively. She's got her back to him, her skirt pressing against her legs in the wind. "They're that much of a threat?" he asks softly. "His family, not Big Mom." Robin's face drops all traces of levity and humor, and her answer comes quickly, with certainty, "Yes." Zoro eyes her levelly. "You're speaking from experience, it's not a question." Robin hesitates before nodding. "They wanted to hire me. The job seemed risky, so I declined." Robin shakes her head and takes another sip of her drink. "They burned me. My contacts dried up. They tried to kill me several times." Robin glances his way, as if to confirm he's listening. "They're the single most powerful underground organization in the world, and their influence is far-reaching. Crocodile found me after a couple of years. It was convenient that our interests were aligned, but I would have needed to join him anyway. No one but a warlord was powerful enough to protect me from both the government and Germa." Zoro eyes her, his grip on Shisui tightening. "You didn't mention this earlier." Robin nods slowly. "I didn't want to influence Lucy's decision on my behalf, and like I said, I agreed with you." Zoro opens his mouth to say something once, twice, a third time. He can't think of anything to contest what she's saying, and his gut churns with the prospect of what that means. "I know you don't want to let her go," Robin presses gently. "No one does, but if we all go on to Wano, we're signing his death warrant." Zoro looks at his crewmate, gauging a woman who is one of the best assassins in the world, and who is both a genius and utterly trustworthy when it comes to Lucy and the crew. Robin is a sober analyst. If she says these guys are really a threat the cook can't handle alone, he believes her. And that means they can't leave Curly Brow alone. Fuck. Deep breath. Watto hums in the base of his skull, its tone uneasy but clear. Zoro swallows another sip of the monkey wine, his gut churning with some unnameable, protesting emotion as he accepts the fact that the cook might be in over his head. Lucy can't go alone, he won't allow it. "No," Robin agrees, her voice firm as steel, "but we'll need you in Wano." Zoro looks over at his girlfriend who is effortlessly charming everyone around her, and ignores the katana's screeching in his ear. "I know. If Lucy is going after Sanji, he'll need to lead the party that leaves for Wano. It's the only way to properly use their resources, with the other two strongest members of the crew away in Big Mom's territory. Nami will want to go after Sanji, and he can't see Brook or Chopper staying behind either. Zoro is going to have to lead everyone else to Wano. And He's going to have to let Lucy go into the jaws of an emperor and a shady criminal organization with only half her usual backup. He's going to have to let Lucy go. His stomach gives a nauseous roll at the thought, but. He's Lucy's first mate before anything else. That's loyalty. That's his oath. One of them, he corrects himself. That's one of your oaths to her. Lucy looks like she's in the middle of an eating contest with another mink while Chopper and Usopp act as referees. She still isn't wearing her hat. She'll be alright, you know. They all will. Zoro looks at the archaeologist, unsurprised to find Robin staring back. Germa, Big Mom. They're strong. But against Lucy. Against Lucy, nothing stands. Zoro snorts, a weak, small thing, but it makes Robin quirk a half smile. Spoken like a straw hat, Zoro teases. Robin replies. Well, with Lucy it's hard not to believe, isn't it? Her eyes flick to his haramaki, where the scars he collected for Lucy rest. He'd say it was accidental, but that wouldn't be giving Robin enough credit. Zoro ignores her, feeling too awkward to answer. Robin is merciful for once and doesn't push. Across the party, he catches a peal of Lucy's laughter, and Zoro doesn't know if it's that or the alcohol that washes away the dread with warmth. Lucy is a fan of the minks. Seriously. So many types of meat. So many. They've got alligator and worm and fish, and that's pretty much it actually, but they prepare it in a million different ways, so it seems like a bunch of meat. And they really know how to throw a party for days, apparently, and they don't mind impromptu eating contests. Honestly, that's a huge plus in Zoe's book, Awesome Island, 10 out of 10. Then again, there has been a lot of drama since her crew arrived. That's not so great. Lucy tries another bite of the worm kebab and considers. Yeah, 9 out of 10. Minus $1 billion for emotional damages, plus $1 million for excellent grilled meat. That equals 9, right? Lucy scrunches her nose. Math. Minus another $1 billion. Never mind, this island sucks. Nami, make math go away. Lucy complains as her navigator approaches her table. She looks a bit bemused by the question, and some of the weird hesitancy in her face goes away in her distraction. I'm not capable of altering the fundamental laws of the universe, she retorts dryly. Why are you doing math? Lucy frowns and grabs one of the yummy purple fruits. Zoe's a weird island. Nami blinks at her, then shakes her head fondly. Let me know if you have any numbers you want me to work with. Lucy nods determinedly and reaches for a worn leg roasted on the bone. The tiger mink she just beat in an eating contest rubs against her shoulder hard enough to knock Lucy off balance, but it's full of goodwill and humor all the same. Lynx. They seem like nice, decent people, and they're honest in their feelings, and cuddly. Nami watches her interact with her new mink friend and offers Lucy a plate of smoked ribs. Lucy accepts eagerly. The minks are really good at making not pork taste like pork. And Nami sits down next to Lucy on the bench, legs tucked neatly under her. That's when Lucy realizes she's still wearing Wanda's purple dress. Something about Wanda and Nami reminds Lucy of herself and Zoro. Actually, Nami looks kind of uncomfortable right now, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. There are dark purple marks under Nami's eyes, like hasn't slept for days, and her skin is pale. Hey, Lucy, she starts, and Lucy has just enough self-awareness to pull the leg of not ham out of her mouth as her navigator speaks. I wanted to say sorry, about yesterday. Lucy frowns. Sorry about what? Nami winces. If I hadn't pushed Zoro like that. She doesn't finish. She looks equal parts guilty and fidgety. Lucy takes a bite of worn meat and turns to Nami with a frown on her lips. Zoro keeping a secret isn't your fault, she says bluntly. For anything else, you'll have to talk to Zoro. Nami blinks at her in surprise and then smiles, tension leaking from her shoulders. Lucy takes a sip of the monkey wine, and reminds herself that Zoro is fine, even if she can't sense him with haki right now. Her palm tingles. I suppose the lughead really didn't mean to be an ass, yesterday, Nami says aloud, resting her chin on her palm. It's just Sanji-kun. And Zoro's dumb. The mink rubs Lucy's arm again. Lucy lets it happen and grins at Nami with pride. She knew Nami would figure it out. And anyway, it's not like he doesn't have a point, she mutters dryly, eyes narrowed. We really do have to deal with both at once. Lucy thinks of the upcoming splitting of her crew, and her stomach turns, the wine suddenly sour in her mouth. On her right, the tiger mink rubs against Lucy again, and she giggles. There's something free-spirited and pirate-y about the minks. They make her feel at ease. The actual elephant though? Negative a billion out of 10. The skull-splitting headache is a pain in the butt. Did that bring Zoe down to like, 8 out of 10? Yeah, close enough. Lucy looks to Nami, ready to tell her all about how Zoe is an 8 out of 10 island and exactly how she came to this conclusion. Robin and Usopp said Nami and Torao in particular were very interested in her cognitive process. But then a familiar weight settles over her head, and a familiar scent of sunshine and straw and oath dust wafts into her nose. Lucy blinks up at Nami under the brim of her hat in surprise. Her navigator is flushed in embarrassment. "Thanks for letting me borrow it, Lucy," Nami says warmly, and then with a glint of mischief in her eye, adds, "And don't think you're going off to Big Mom's territory alone. I'm coming too." Lucy gasps, and grips Nami's forearm in excitement. "Really?" Nami smiles, the edges of it brimming with her characteristic confidence. "Someone's gotta box Sanji-kun's ears for him." Lucy nods seriously, still grinning wide enough to make her cheeks ache. "Yeah. I have to kick his butt too." Lucy turns back to her meal, and wrestles a kebab out of her mink friend's paws with impish glee. "So it'll be you, me, and Brooke." Nami gives a non-committal hum and shrugs, her eyes on another part of the party. Lucy is about to ask her if she thinks 8 and 7/8 is a good enough score for Zoe, headache multiplied by really yummy meat, when a bell rings out over the whole city. Samurai Saru. Samurai at the gates, Saru, Samurai, Saru. Lucy looks to Nami, and her navigator returns her glance, pale-faced and expression pinched. They forgot about the samurai. They forgot about the samurai. Shit. Or, not. No, Lucy thinks. No, this is decidedly not shit. This looks more like a bond. An oath, even. The minks are the type to bet life and limb for the sake of a friend. Lucy knew she liked them. One look at the rest of her crew's floored expressions tells her they noticed it too. The samurai were already their friends, and the minks were kindred spirits. Lucy beams at them all and teases Momonosuke, and then the samurai drop the bomb that Kinemon is not Momo's dad but his retainer. Because Momo is a lord or something equally fancy. And his actual father is dead or something. Momo keeps crying whenever it's brought up. It makes Lucy's hackles rise, for reasons she doesn't understand. Maybe she's annoyed with the tears? Ace always made fun of her for crying, but mostly because he had no idea how to make her feel better otherwise. No one ever let him cry in peace either. Momo cries when he sees Dog Storm and Cat Viper fighting, cries when he mentions his father, cries when Kinemon asks about Raizo, and something about it is wrong. She finally gets it when it's Kinemon who asks for her help in taking down Kaido and getting revenge for Momo's father in the process. Kinemon and Raizo and Kanjuro who make the decision and ask her, and meanwhile Momonosuke stands in front of them and cries like he doesn't know how to stop. It's not the tears that are bothering her, she realizes. Most 7-year-olds in Momo's shoes would cry. Most adults too. It's that Momo hasn't once told her what it is he wants. She barks a no, and ignores Kinemon's tearful begging. Lucy just keeps her eyes on Momo, even as half her crew voices disagreement and protest. The kid isn't even looking at her, just trying desperately to stop crying. After a moment or two he manages to focus on her, blinking from under his lashes. "Are you just going to let them speak for you?" Lucy growls, looking him dead in the eye. A leader of great men has to say what they want. Momo's expression fractures and the tears come impossibly thicker, and Lucy realizes right there that no one has ever spoken to this kid as an equal once in his entire life. It would suck, Lucy thinks, to have a whole army of retainers and not one friend. Lucy doesn't know, it's not how she does things. It takes him nearly a full minute and a lot of haranguing from her crew later, but finally he speaks through his tears, his voice so raw at the end it may as well be a scream. Poor kid. Kaido killed his mother too. Momo doesn't say anything about the country Kaido's been given free reign to rule. That's okay. Children are allowed to be selfish. He tries to finish his speech by bowing. It leaves a bad taste in her mouth so she stops him. Okay, she promises firmly, but I'll be taking Kaido's head. Damn, if she thought he'd been crying before. Her crew swamps Momo immediately, doing their level best to reassure him. Law bitches about her not consulting him, which is silly. Law likes allies and he's also soft for kids. It's a no-brainer. Zoro squeezes her shoulder and Kinemon does the bowing crying thing before Lucy can stop him. By the time the ninja alliance is sealed and the rest of her crew are done messing with him, Momo is laughing hard. No trace of tears to be seen. It's good. It distracts her from the way it feels like something is splitting the front of her skull open, ever since climbing up into the whale. Zoro and Usopp don't seem like they're any worse off than when they arrived at Zou. She's probably just imagining it. Zoro knew something was different about this place. Something lying in wait. Zou holds a piece of the map to Raftel, and there are stars in Lucy's eyes. Dog Storm and Cat Viper left the pirates and the samurai to their own devices while some of their people confer with them about rebuilding efforts and resources. Chopper and Usopp seem bent on teasing Law about ninjas. While the rest of the crew mingles with the samurai. Lucy, however, stands on the edge of the whale, facing the west, seemingly lost in thought. Zoro walks up to her right side. She doesn't look at him, her fists clenched at her hips, but she spares him a brief half-smile when she finally notices him. Zoro takes this as permission to stay, content to watch her look to haze her alight, nearly burning with anticipation and conviction. There's an ache in her face that Zoro understands, deep down in his marrow. It was the very first thing about her that he understood, all the way back on the dinghy and maybe even before, when he was tied to a crucifix. Zoro knows what it's like to catch sight of one's dream, he gets it. After a minute, Lucy's right hand relaxes, and she reaches blindly for Zoro's wrist. Something fond bursts in his chest, like a bubble popping. Not long, now, he offers, happy to stand in silence if she wants. Lucy's grin is wide and splits her face, and for all the earnest brightness of Lucy's smile, the one she graces Zoro with now burns with the brilliance of the sun. Raftel, Zoro, she breathes, her heart and drive shining in her eyes, and hat blowing on its string in the wind. It's Raftel. Zoro can't help the way his lips twitch up in the face of her breathlessness. He squeezes her hand and runs his thumb along her knuckles to satisfy the urge to kiss her senseless. He doesn't want to distract her from this moment, wants to let her live it, be impressed by it. Lucy turns back to the sea, her hand in his this time, and Zoro studies his girlfriend in profile. Small nose, thin lips, sun-tanned freckles across her cheekbones. Wind pushing her hair away from wide dark eyes and a face that seems to glow with impossible aliveness. It's moments like these that remind him his lover is not a woman made for land or people. She's a creature of air that belongs to the sea, and at times like this she seems filled with an ephemeral strangeness, an otherness that's impossible to put his finger on no matter how well he knows her heart. She's like a miniature sun born as a living, breathing girl, and sometimes Zoro is struck by the singularity of Monkey D. Lucy, pulled in by the gravity of her presence. Some small part of his heart questions, again, why such a person would give her heart to Zoro, who will be great, the greatest, but who will only ever be human. He brushes these doubts aside. It's easier now than it's been in the past, and getting easier. Whatever happens at the end of Lucy's horizon, Zoro will be with her, and he will follow her long after that, as long as she lets him. Lucy squeezes his hand, never looking away from the sea. Zoro smiles and squeezes back. They're halfway down the whale tree when Chopper discovers Brook and Nami will be accompanying Lucy and the lion dude to Whole Cake Island. The doctor immediately puts up a fuss. Peckham's is still injured. I'm coming with you. Lucy frowns at him, and Zoro imagines she's probably debating on whether or not she can afford to bring one more crewman or not without looking like she's declaring war. Chopper seems to understand this too, and presses where the whole crew knows Lucy's buttons are softest. I let Sanji get taken, he objects. His eyes are a bit wet, it's devastating. Lucy's face softens, and then she looks at Kinemon, eyebrows raised. Kinemon looks at the half of the crew that will be going with him to Wano, his eyes lingering first on Robin, then on Zoro. He shrugs. It is not for me to decide what you do with your crew. His voice implies a certain resignation for Lucy doing whatever the hell she wants regardless of his opinion. Good. Lucy tips her head in acknowledgement and smiles at Chopper, he cheers. In the back of the group, Zoro's gut twists with anxiety. He walks with his hands laced behind his head, looking up at the billowing white cathedrals of clouds. He's trying not to think about the upcoming separation too much. He has to keep reminding himself it's not like last time, that this is strategic, not desperate, and that Lucy will not be alone. We'll take care of her. Zoro looks to his left to find Nami walking next to him, chin held up proudly and her shoulders thrown back. She looks at him expectantly, with a protective fierceness in her eyes that Zoro recognizes. Zoro nods. Believing anything else of their crew would be stupid. Believing anything less of Nami, well, Zoro knows how much she loves their captain. It doesn't make the anxiety go away, but it's a bit comforting to know Nami will be the one looking after her regardless. Zoro, Nami starts. There's a tone in her voice he barely recognizes, something serious and tinged in regret, and it surprises him so much that he stops and turns to her while the others move further and further ahead. Nami stops with him, and looks down at her feet, her shoulders hunched. I'm sorry for hitting you. And sorry for saying those things about Sanji and Lucy. You were but you deserved better than having me doubt you like that. She shakes her head. I know you believe in Sanji as much as anyone, I shouldn't have implied otherwise. Then Nami smiles and punches him in the arm, lightly, for her, a gesture towards normality, and smiles. Forgive me? Zoro's still not sure what to do with apologies, but this much at least he can probably handle. You punch like a girl. He adds a smirk for good measure. I am a girl, pea-brain. Nami retorts immediately, fire blazing in her eyes. Zoro can't quite keep the amusement off his face and Nami responds in kind, her temper breaking easily. Want a hug? She asks, batting her eyelashes like that's gonna convince him she's not a demonic leech, out to bleed him for all he's worth. No, he replies shortly, turning to stomp away. He's not one for touchy-feely things on a good day, but it's muggy as hell on this elephant anyway. Please, Nami pouts, and then sports an evil grin. Just think of how jealous Sanji-kun will be when he finds out I hugged you. Zoro thinks about that for a second. Nami gets her goddamn hug. That'll be 10 million berry. Zoro shoves her off with a fuck you, sea witch. And Nami laughs so hard she cries. Zoro just scowls at her, but something that's felt out of place ever since they learned of Sanji's disappearance slots back into rhythm, like a joint finding its socket. There's no one he'd rather have looking out for Lucy in his stead than Nami. No one. Nami loves Lucy like she's her sister, like she's been looking out for her all her life. She may not be as strong as Sanji or Robin or Frankie, but she is strong in ways Lucy isn't, and would never let her come to harm while there's breath in her body. It feels good to be on the same page again, even if she is a bloody sea witch. Nami calms down and wipes the laughing tears from her eyes, still giggling a bit. Zoro scowls darkly at her because it wasn't that funny. She opens her mouth to say something, probably about how easy it was to trick him, blah, 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 when the elephant tips, and it's all anyone can do to keep their feet. And 100 yards ahead of him, Zoro hears Lucy scream.